Chapter 384. Suzaku thought for a moment and said, I can't get out now. Mika Kito is with me. What? He found you? Damn. Didn't the Miyagi police say that they would help you cover up your whereabouts? How can the Metropolitan Police Department be so unreliable? Don't get too worked up, Hongling. Red Sparrow massaged her temples and sighed. You can't blame Miyagi for this. It's not easy for him to cover for me for 3 years. Anyway, I can't come out now. Why don't you let Miyagi and the others take care of Harada? Hongling shouted excitedly. No, Harada Yushir is worth 5 million. If we get that reward, how many orphans can we help? I don't want to give up such a good opportunity to the Metropolitan Police Department. Suzaku, please think of another way, please. Okay, I'll give it a try. Wait for my news. After hanging up the phone, Suzaku looked at her watch. It was only 10 o'clock. If she went to downtown Sapporo now, she would be back in town by 12 o'clock at the latest. Mika Kito shouldn't be able to detect her presence. She walked out of the bedroom, turned on the wall lamp in the living room, and deliberately made her footsteps heavy. She walked to the kitchen, vigilantly watching Mika Kito lying on the sofa. Mika Kito didn't move from the moment she entered the kitchen until she heated up a glass of milk and brought it back to the room. She thought that he should be asleep. Suzaku changed into her night clothes, took out a car key from the bedside table, put it in her trouser pocket, and quietly walked out the door. The moment she locked the door, Mika Kito suddenly opened his eyes. His dark jade-like pupils stared at the locked door. It was late at night. The street was dark, the street was dim, and there was no one. A Porsche sports car slowly drove out of the underground garage and sped away under the cover of the night. Mika Kito stood at the intersection, looking in the direction where the Porsche disappeared. His face was cold and terrifying. Damn woman, how much more is she hiding from me? A Maybach drove out from another street and stopped in front of Mika Kito. Jiang Dao unlocked the car door. Mika Kito quickly got into the back seat and ordered, "Follow her." Yes. When Suzaku arrived in Sapporo, it was already 12 o'clock in the morning. Some streets were deserted, while others were the busiest. She used the car phone to contact Hongling and learn their exact location. They drove through the downtown area for a while, and finally turned into a secluded street. She wandered around for nearly 10 minutes before she arrived at her destination. Calm as far as she knew, this was the black market of Sapporo, where crooks mixed with honest folk. Violent attacks often occurred here, and even the police were not willing to deal with this place, for fear of provoking the forces of the mafia. No wonder Harada was hiding in this place. The Porsche stopped in an open space. Suzaku was wearing a tight black suit. Her hair was tied up high, and her beautiful face was as cold as ice. The ruthless killer Suzaku was resurrected at this moment. Sister Suzaku. 2 black figures quickly ran to her side. One was a man, and the other was a woman. Both of them were in their 20s. They were wearing black night clothes with pistols and handcuffs hidden at their waists. Let's go. Be careful. Don't alarm others. Suzaku lowered her voice and waved at them. Harada Yasushi was a perverted murderer. He had raped and killed 7 women and buried their bodies under his garden. After the crime, he fled from Tokyo to Hokkaido. Suzaku and the other 2 were bounty hunters. They specialized in capturing wanted criminals for high bounties. Usually, Qing Yen and Hongling were the ones who took action. They only asked Suzaku for help when they encountered more difficult fugitives and couldn't handle them. The 3 of them split up and planned to surround Harada Yasushi, capture him alive, and send him to the police station. Suzaku's right hand was on the pistol at her waist. She walked in the dark alley with high vigilance. From time to time, she could hear the meowing of stray cats and the sound of drug addicts trading. She walked to the deepest part of the alley and hid behind a wall. If Harada Yasushi wanted to escape, this was one of the places he had to go. Hongling was waiting for him at the other place. Panicked and hurried footsteps sounded on the empty stone road. A strong man in his 30s held a gun in his hand, shooting behind him as he fled in panic. Suzaku jumped down from the wall and kicked the gun out of the man's hand. She twisted the man's hands behind his back and pressed him heavily on the ground. The man shouted in panic, "Spare me! I don't know anything. I don't know anything." Suzaku's eyes narrowed. She turned his face around. This face was different from the one on the wanted poster. They had the wrong person. This wasn't Harada Yasushi. She said coldly, "Where's Harada Yasushi?" I don't know. A man gave me a sum of money and told me to run in this direction. Damn it. I fell for Harada's trick of luring me away. Suzaku kicked him away and said to Qing Yen, who was chasing after them, "This isn't Harada. He must have gone in Hongling's direction. Quick, let's go." On their way to Hongling's side, a gunshot suddenly rang out in the silent night. Zhu Kei's pupils suddenly constricted, and a wave of uneasiness surged in her heart. She quickened her pace and rushed forward. Under the dim light, the two figures grappled with each other. Their pistols had been tossed far away, so they could only engage in hand-to-hand combat. Hongling was good at kung fu, but Yuan Tian was not bad either. The two of them fought fiercely. Suzaku ran forward and kicked Harada's leg. She then pointed the gun at his temple and said coldly, "Let her go." Harada glared at Suzaku. His face was twisted with hatred. Finally, he let go of Hongling under her coercion. Hongling held her knees with both hands and panted heavily. Damn it, Harada Yasushi's grip was too strong. He almost broke her neck. "Cuff him," Suzaku said coldly. Qing Yen took out a pair of handcuffs from her back and cuffed Harada's wrists. The three of them walked out of the alley with Harada in tow. After walking for less than 10 meters, they saw a man in a black suit standing under a street lamp. He was tall and muscular like a statue. He stood straight and stared at them coldly without any expression on his face. Suzaku's heart skipped a beat. It was Mika Kito. Hongling frowned. "Sister Suzaku, that person seems to be." "Shoo, stop talking. Sister Suzaku, let's take Harada to the police station first." Qing Yen saw that Suzaku's expression had darkened. She immediately called Hongling and left with Harada. Suzaku pursed her lips and walked towards Mika Kito. Under the light, his handsome face was cold. She leaned closer to him and said softly, "I'm sorry for hiding it from you." Mika Kito's thin lips curved into a cold smile. She suppressed the anger in her voice. "Have you been like this for the past 3 years?" She had been with him for so long. Of course, she knew that he was on the verge of exploding. The stupidest thing to do was to go against him, and the smartest thing to do was to show weakness. She took a step forward and hugged his waist slowly. She leaned her head on his chest and said softly, "I was wrong. I apologize." Mika Kito froze. Although they already had a child, they rarely had physical contact, especially when she took the initiative to get close to him. It seemed like this was the first time. The time when he was under the influence of the aphrodisiac didn't count because he wasn't conscious. He lowered his eyes and looked at the woman in his arms. She was so gentle and pitiful. She was completely different from the cold and aloof person he used to know. It was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his head, extinguishing most of the anger in his heart. He wrapped his arms around her waist and hugged her tightly. He said in a deep voice, "Don't do such a dangerous thing again." She raised her head and looked at him, her eyes filled with smiles. "Got it. I won't do it again." Although he had already received her guarantee, Mika Kito was still a little unhappy. Just thinking about how she had put herself in danger for the past 3 years made him feel like he was about to go crazy. He pulled her into his car with a dark face and sat in the driver's seat. He chased Jiang Dao into Suzaku's car and ordered Jiang Dao to drive her Porsche back to town and take care of his precious son. "Wait a minute." Suzaku grabbed his arm and asked in confusion, "Aren't we going back together?" He grunted and ignored her. He stepped on the accelerator and drove the car onto the main road. The car drove on the busy street for a while and finally stopped outside a 5-star hotel. Mika Kito threw the car keys to the hotel valet and dragged Suzaku forward. The lobby manager immediately greeted them and bowed respectfully to them. "President, madam, how may I help you?" "Prepare a presidential suite." This hotel chain was a property of the Bo AO Group. The lobby manager naturally complied with Mika Kito's request and immediately took the room card from the front desk. "Okay, there's nothing else for you to do here. Go back to work." Mika Kito took the room card and dragged Suzaku to the elevator. Vermilion Bird had a bad premonition in her heart. Why did you bring me here? I want to go home and take care of now." She clung to the elevator door and stubbornly refused to go in. Mikakito narrowed his eyes dangerously. Zhang Dao will take care of now. Hurry up and go in, or I'll carry you upstairs and let everyone watch. It's your choice. The corner of her mouth twitched. You win. She walked into the elevator reluctantly. He went in after her and quickly pressed the button. The elevator went straight to the top floor. It was late at night and the corridor was empty. Suzaku followed behind him and walked into the luxurious presidential suite. The door slammed shut. Bei Tangshin suddenly turned around and pulled her into his chest. His strong arms tightly imprisoned her in his embrace. He lowered his head and forcefully kissed her lips. He fiercely attacked her as if he wanted to punish her for leaving without saying goodbye for 3 years. Ugh! She twisted her waist uncomfortably and almost suffocated. His movements became gentler as he bit her lips and whispered, "Idiot, breathe." He didn't expect her to be so inexperienced that she didn't even know how to kiss. This discovery made Bei Tangshin go wild with joy. He was her first man, and he would also be her last man. He licked her lips, tempting her to open her mouth. His nimble tongue quietly entered her mouth, entangling with hers. He held the back of her head with one hand and led her to the bed. His other hand swiftly unzipped her night suit and took off her jacket. The air was filled with an ambiguous atmosphere and the atmosphere was heated. Suzaku was at a loss and could only follow his rhythm. She allowed him to take off her clothes one by one. When she was only left with her underwear, she was already pressed against him on the huge bed. She closed her eyes, not daring to meet his burning gaze. Her sense of hearing and touch became especially sensitive. She heard the sound of his shirt buttons falling, and she also heard the sound of his metal belt buckle being opened. The fabric under her palms disappeared, and it was replaced by hot and smooth skin. His chest was pressed against her softness, and his lips passionately kissed her chin and neck. Suzaku felt the blood in her body getting hotter and hotter. It was so hot that it seemed to be on fire. An inexplicable desire arose in her heart. She was both looking forward to and afraid of what would happen next. That night, the tearing pain was still fresh in her mind. When he kissed her dogwood, her whole body trembled and she nervously grabbed his arm. Mikakito raised his head and looked into her eyes. Her watery eyes were filled with confusion and uneasiness. Her sexy lips were tensed up nervously. He thought of the pain he had caused her that night. It must have left a shadow in her heart. His heart ached even more. His large palm gently kneaded her softness and he whispered, "Wifey, don't be afraid." This time, he wanted to take it slow and let her experience extreme pleasure. His hand slowly slid down, and she felt a chill below her body. The last piece of fabric had been removed by him, and his palm was already pressed against that quiet spot. With a strong sense of love and indulgence, he led her to explore the mystery together. His rough fingertips touched the softness in the forest, causing her whole body to tremble. She couldn't help but raise her beautiful neck and mist appeared in her starry eyes. She didn't know what to do. She wanted to get rid of that throbbing feeling, but she couldn't escape the desire in her heart. His large hand was still wantonly teasing her as if that was the most sensitive part of her body. As long as he touched it slightly, her whole body would tremble. There was a burning flame between the two of them. She restlessly moved her slender waist as if she was asking for more. His whole body was tense, and that part was already hard as iron. However, he didn't rush in recklessly. Instead, he carefully continued to kiss her. His wet and hot kisses almost covered her entire body. When she was kissed to the point of forgetfulness, he quietly went in. Ah! Although they had already done enough foreplay, her body still tensed up at the sudden intrusion of a secret that had not been open to anyone for 3 years. Wifey, relax. Don't be afraid. Mikakito was already at the limit of his endurance. Beads of sweat dripped from his forehead and landed on her fair skin. He temporarily stopped his actions and used his hand to rub the part that fit. A wave of numbness spread from there. She gradually relaxed and opened her eyes slightly. Seeing that he was enduring so much pain, her heart softened. She took the initiative to reach out and wrap her arms around his strong waist. She shyly whispered, "It's done." He saw that she didn't seem to be in so much pain anymore, so he tried to move. The pleasure of being tightly wrapped came like a tidal wave, and he couldn't hold it back any longer. He followed his instincts and went deeper and deeper. Awesome novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 385. The slow rhythm gradually changed and became as fierce as a storm. She floated up and down with him, indulging in the pleasure he brought. Mika Kito had been abstinent for so long, so of course, he couldn't be satisfied with just 1 or 2 times. He hugged her on the bed, on the table, on the windowsill, in the bathtub, and devoured her over and over again. She was so tired that she couldn't even open her eyes. In the end, her whole body hung limply on his body. He hugged her tightly, pressed into the deepest part of her body, and whispered those 3 words in her ear. Tears fell uncontrollably. She hugged him tightly in a daze, thinking that she was in a dream. Suzaku didn't wake up until the evening of the next day. She found herself curled up in Mika Kito's arms, her hands pressed against his bare chest. He seemed to have been awake for a long time. He looked down at her face and smiled slightly. "You're awake." His voice was mellow and gentle. His chest was full of ambiguous marks, and she couldn't help but recall the intense affair last night. Her cheeks burned slightly, and she didn't dare to look into his eyes. "What's wrong? Does it still hurt?" Mika Kito saw that her head was lowered and she didn't say anything. He lifted her chin, his face full of concern. She blushed even harder and she softly said, There was an unnoticeable awkwardness between his brows. "I used too much strength last night. I'll improve in the future." Suzaku's mouth twitched. She couldn't help but say dryly, "It's not a matter of whether you use too much strength or not, but the number of times," he coughed. "So your husband is quite capable, but he's also quite annoying?" She snorted but didn't say anything. He kissed her hard on the cheek and reached out to take a tube of ointment from the bedside table. He unscrewed the cap, and a fragrant smell wafted into her nose. She didn't understand. "What are you doing?" "I'm helping you apply the ointment." He smeared a little ointment on his finger and stretched his finger to the inside of her leg. She closed her leg shyly. "I'll do it myself. Take your hand away." "Honey, you're clamping my hand so tightly. How can I take it out?" His tone was serious, but the content of his words was full of lust. She couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. She loosened her legs and gritted her teeth. "Come out quickly." His lips curled into a mischievous smile. He did not do as she wished. Instead, he directly penetrated her. She let out a soft cry out of reflex. Her body trembled as she clung tightly to his embrace. The tightness he felt with his fingers made him involuntarily think of Feng Kuang last night, which almost drove him crazy. He forcefully suppressed the fire in his heart and slowly smeared it. After applying the ointment, Suzaku was already limp in his arms, and he wasn't any better. A certain part of his body was on fire. Considering her body's condition, he could only secretly take deep breaths to suppress his throbbing. Gurgle gurgle. Mika Kito chuckled darkly. Suzaku glared at him. "What are you laughing at? Haven't you seen others being hungry before?" Mika Kito stroked her hair good-naturedly. "Don't be angry. The waiter will send the food over right away." The waiter pushed the dining cart and sent a sumptuous dinner to the living room. After washing up, the two of them wore bathrobes and sat at the dining table to enjoy a candlelit dinner. He considerately helped her cut the steak, poured wine for her, and gazed at her with a gentle and doting smile. All of this was so beautiful that it felt like a dream. In the past, she didn't even dare to imagine that such a day would come. She stared at his handsome face under the candlelight with a dazed expression. "Silly, what are you thinking about?" Mika Kito stroked her hair behind her ear and smiled. She smiled. "I just didn't expect that we would develop to this point." He put down the cutlery and pulled her into his arms. "I'm sorry to have made you wait for me for 3 years. 3 years was enough for him to sort out his unrealistic fantasies and start a new relationship. What he had missed was gone forever. He wanted to seize the happiness that belonged to him in this limited life. She wrapped her arms around his waist and leaned her head against his chest. A peaceful smile bloomed on her face. After dinner, she wanted to go home. She was worried about making a scene. However, Mika Kito said that before going home, he wanted to take her to a place. It was a beach very close to the town where she lived. The seaside in winter was already a little cold. The cold wind rustled, and the fishy smell of the sea hit her in the face. Under the dark night sky, a circle of lotus lanterns was lit on the beach in the distance. The lotus lanterns were connected to each other, and hundreds of them formed a large heart-shaped circle. After Mika Kito got out of the car, he opened the door for her and held her hand as they walked towards the bright lights. He held her hand and stepped into the heart-shaped lights. They were surrounded by a circle of lights. Under her surprised gaze, he knelt on one knee on the beach and held her hand tightly. He gazed at her delicate eyes affectionately and said slowly, "Lin Wu Yu, Miss Lin, will you marry me?" Her eyes were filled with tears, and they were sparkling under the candlelight. She smiled. "I will." Although the proposal was late by 3 years, she was very happy. She was really very happy. He smiled and kissed the ring on her ring finger seriously. Then he got up and hugged her tightly in his arms. "Wifey, come back to Tokyo with me, okay?" She looked up and kissed his smooth chin. "Okay." Surprise flashed across his eyes. He lowered his head and kissed her lips, unwilling to let go for a long time. Just as they were kissing, bright fireworks bloomed in the night sky. It was a beautiful sight to behold. On the way home, Suzaku looked at her handsome side profile and couldn't help but laugh. "Did you learn all these tricks from the story of love?" His lips curled up. "You heard that?" She glared at him. "Don't forget that I'm a killer. I have sharp ears and eyes. Although you deliberately lowered your voices, I still heard it clearly. Thank you for not exposing us." Mika Kito chuckled happily. She nodded seriously. "You're welcome. Although the tricks are cliché, the effect is passable for the sake of the person who used them." Mika Kito wasn't angry. Instead, the smile in his eyes deepened. "To think that an old man like me learned how to woo my wifey. Fortunately, my wifey is satisfied. Otherwise, I wouldn't know how to end this. Is there anything you can't handle?" She looked at him with a smile. In her eyes, he was a man of indomitable spirit, a godlike existence that could call the wind and summon the rain. She respected him and loved him even more. He chuckled. Not anymore. After she agreed to go back with him, there was nothing that could stop him anymore. The two of them returned home. Now was playing on the sofa with Grandma Kimura's little tabby cat in his arms. Jiang Dao sat beside him to accompany him. The little guy saw his parents appear at the door side by side, and his beautiful big eyes rolled around a few times. He quickly abandoned the little tabby cat, jumped down from the sofa, and threw himself at Vermilion Bird's legs. He pouted and called out softly, "Mommy, where did you go? You left me alone." Jiang Dao saw that their family was reunited and quietly left the living room. Suzaku carried her son and kissed his cheek. "I'm sorry. Mommy had something to do. I won't let you be alone in the future." Now hugged her neck and stared at Mika Kito with his bright eyes. "Mommy, did you go out with strange uncle?" Suzaku pinched his face and smiled. "He's not strange uncle. He's daddy. Now, call daddy." Now blinked and Gigai called, "Daddy." "Good boy." Mika Kito was grinning from ear to ear. She took her son from Suzaku's arms and kissed him hard on the cheek. "Good boy. Call me that again. Daddy, daddy. I'll have a daddy in the future too. Yeah." The little boy excitedly moved his little body in his father's arms and clapped his hands, laughing and playing. His body moved forward and back, and he kept playing tricks. Suzaku was frightened and reached out to support his back. Now, be careful. Don't fall." Mika Kito smiled and comforted her. "It's okay. Our son is happy. Let him play. I'll hold him tightly. Nothing will happen. Daddy, you're so awesome." The little boy was full of admiration for his father and clapped his hands. Mika Kito's heart melted and was filled with pride. She kissed her son on the cheek and pulled Suzaku closer to kiss her on the cheek. Suzaku glared at him but did not refuse. The family was happy and harmonious, and laughter intertwined. Suzaku and Now were full of affection for this town. Before leaving, Mika Kito accompanied the mother and son to visit the neighbors and friends who had taken care of them. They gave gifts and expressed their gratitude. At Suzaku's insistence, they also visited Akiko. Mika Kito smiled and shook Akiko's hand, thanking him for taking care of his wife and son. Akiko hid his feelings for Suzaku in the bottom of his heart and generously gave them his blessings. In the end, with the blessings of the town's residents, they reluctantly drove away from this place and returned to Tokyo. Mika Kito insisted on holding a make-up wedding. He wanted this wedding to be even grander than the one 3 years ago. Xia Dong's family of 6 flew over from China. The old Tomac also came, and he brought a mysterious guest. Mika Kito saw the mysterious guest and hugged him excitedly. She patted his back heavily. "Holly, long time no see." Holly raised his eyebrows and smiled carelessly. "Ah Shen, you're hugging me so tightly. Aren't you afraid that the bride will misunderstand?" "Damn you. After so many years, you still have a glib tongue." Mika Kito pushed him away and punched his chest with a smile. "Why didn't you tell me in advance that you were coming out?" "Of course it was to give you a surprise. You see, I love you so much." Holly smiled ambiguously. He was released half a year early because of his good behavior in prison. After he attended the wedding and returned to Rome, Tomac would hand over the Anya family to him. Mika Kito teased, "Unfortunately, you confessed too late. I already have a wife." Xia Dong shrugged his shoulders impatiently. "That's enough, you guys. I'm getting goosebumps." Ha ha ha. Everyone burst into laughter. Miyamoto Hanzo appeared out of nowhere, his goatee curling up. "Hurry up. It's almost time. Ah Shen, hurry up and welcome the bride." Hiroshi Katato had his hands in his trouser pockets, and a pure and beautiful girl was holding his arm. The two of them were like a golden boy and jade girl. They were a perfect match and even spoke with tacit understanding. They said in unison, "Uncle Hanzo, run slower. Don't fall." After the two of them finished speaking, they smiled at each other and made cute faces at each other. They were so sweet to the bone. Miyamoto Hanzo pretended to be angry and glared at the two of them. "Boy Yuan, girl Xian Yu, listen carefully. I'm still young. How can I fall?" Eh. The girl called Xian Yu was a Yuan's girlfriend. She wrinkled her little nose and stuck out her tongue at Miyamoto Hanzo. "Uncle, don't be angry. We're just joking." A Yuan rubbed Xian Yu's hair and said with a smile, "Xiao Yu, let's ignore Uncle Hanzo and go with big brother to pick up sister-in-law." Okay. Let's go pick up sister-in-law." Holly followed suit. "Let's go. Let's join in the fun. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh." A large group of people ran away, leaving Miyamoto Hanzo and a group of child soldiers staring at each other. The old man was so sad. The leader of the child soldiers, Xiao Yi, coughed and comforted him seriously. "Grandpa Hanzo, don't be sad. They really didn't mean to ignore you." Sob. Sob. Being comforted like this makes the old man even sadder. "Grandpa, don't cry. Hai will help you cry." The little princess of the Bailey family, Hai, ran to his side and hugged his legs affectionately. She coaxed him as if he was a small animal. Miyamoto Hanzo immediately beamed with joy. The little princess is still the most considerate. "Don't snatch my grandpa. This is my family." The little devil of the Beitang family, now, rushed over with his hands on his hips. He glared at Miss, who was a few years older than him, with dissatisfaction. In just a short month, he had been spoiled by the Yamaguchi Gumi. They liked to label everything with the words, "my family." "My mommy, my daddy, my doggy." Hai also had her hands on her hips. She lowered her head and looked at the little guy who was half a head shorter than her. She snorted in disdain. "Petty. You're not gentlemanly at all." Now's little face flushed red. "You're so fierce. You're not cute at all." "Say that again. Not cute at all." "Waha, I'm so angry. Do you want to fight?" "I'm a man. I won't fight with you." The two children glared at each other angrily. Miyamoto Hanzo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao were watching the show from the side. They weren't worried about their little princess. The little princess had already learned self-defense from Xiao Guai. If they really fought, Now would definitely be beaten up by her. Ahem, they weren't worried about Now either. Although Hai was very fierce, she was actually very soft-hearted and wouldn't really beat Now. A melodious wedding march sounded. Xiao Guai quickly ran between the two little guys and said, "Stop fighting. Look, the bride and groom are here." Everyone quietened down as they cast their gazes at the couple who slowly entered with the music. They were dressed in white wedding gowns and white gowns. They looked holy and perfect like gods as they stared at each other with deep affection. They had knowing smiles on their faces as the sun shone on them, writing a love that would last until the end of time. Come and see. Song Shu 566. Chapter 386. The plane landed in New York, USA. Here, the sun had just risen and it was the beginning of a beautiful day. The sun shone through the huge glass wall and shone on the people walking slowly through the safety passage. Among them, there was a tall man who was particularly eye-catching. He was wearing expensive casual clothes, which outlined his tall and handsome figure. His fine black hair covered his smooth forehead and a pair of brown sunglasses rested on his straight nose. His thin lips were slightly pursed and his chin was as sharp as a knife. He exuded a lazy and leisurely aura. He stopped and took off his sunglasses with his slender fingers. His long and narrow peach blossom eyes were slightly raised as he looked around. His face was so beautiful that it took one's breath away. President. A blonde handsome foreign man waved at the man. Bailey Yun's lips curled up slightly as he dragged his suitcase towards his assistant, Kelly, who had come to greet him. President. Thank you for your hard work. Kelly took the suitcase from him and said respectfully, the driver is already waiting outside the airport. Outside the airport, a silver Porsche had been waiting for a long time. Kelly opened the car door and bent over, one hand guarding the door and the other making an inviting gesture. Bailey Yun sat in the car and leaned comfortably against the soft seat. He took off his sunglasses and brushed his black hair that was slightly covering his eyes. There was a hint of melancholy in his charming almond-shaped eyes. Li Duobao, this bad girl, was still hiding from him. When he had just gotten off the plane, he had called her again, but her phone was still turned off. Bailey Yun's slender fingers tapped on the leather seat. He collected his thoughts and looked at Kelly. Is there anything important going on in the company recently? Vice President, we have negotiated a cooperation with Genesis High-Tech Software. This is the draft agreement. Kelly handed a contract to him. Bailey Yun's eyes narrowed as he carefully read the document in his hand. If this cooperation was successful, he would be able to enter the China market faster. On the other side, Li Duobao was awakened by the dazzling sunlight. She rubbed her messy hair and sat up from the bed. Wrapped in the quilt, she lazily stared at the furnishings in the room. She used 2 seconds to wake herself up. She patted her cheeks and told herself that she was in a hotel, in America. God, after working overtime for days, she couldn't even tell where she was. She glanced at the bedside clock. It was already past 9 o'clock. She stretched lazily and wore the plaid bear pajamas to wash up in the bathroom. After tidying up, she turned on her phone. Dozens of messages and missed calls poured out. The names showed that they were all from one person, Bailey Yun. Li Duobao couldn't help but think of his confession that day, and her heart started to beat faster again. She bit her lip and opened the message he sent. Li Duobao, why are you avoiding me? Li Duobao, don't ignore me. Li Duobao of Li Duobao. Li Duobao, you despicable woman. I'm going back to America. Will you die if you talk to me? Li Duobao, where are you? I'm worried to death. Li Duobao, I'm worried about you. Tell me, are you doing well now? Li Duobao, I'm leaving. I won't give up. I'll keep chasing you until you agree to me. The last message he wrote was, Li Duobao, I like you. I like you very much. Li Duobao looked at these messages in a daze. His anger, his helplessness, his anxiety, and his deep feelings were all conveyed to her through these short messages. She couldn't help but think of the time she spent with him. Although it wasn't long, it was full of laughter and sweetness. She hesitated for a long time. Her slender fingers rubbed the phone screen. In the end, she clicked on a reply. I'm in New York. I'm fine. In less than 2 seconds after the message was sent, he called her. He sounded anxious. Li Duobao, why are you avoiding me these days? She bit her lip. I'm not avoiding you. I'm very busy at work. Bailey Yun's tone sank. Why didn't you pick up my call? She muttered softly, I'm used to switching off my phone at work. He seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. His tone suddenly rose, and he was overflowing with excitement. So you're not avoiding me on purpose? Li Duobao mumbled, Actually, it was a little intentional. However, it was really just a little. She just didn't know how to face him. Bailey Yun took it as her acquiescence and was elated. Where are you? I'll come over to see you now. She scratched the sofa with her fingers and said softly, It's not necessary. I'm going back tomorrow. Then all the more we have to meet. Tell me the address quickly. Bailey Yun was like an emperor, giving orders. No. Li Duobao, are you deliberately making me angry? Tell me quickly. I want to see you immediately. She puffed her cheeks. I'm not ready to see you yet. Bad girl, do you know how much I've missed you these few days? If you don't tell me, I'll call your airline. You have so many colleagues. There must be someone who knows where you are. Li Duobao took it seriously and said, No. I'll tell you. I'm at the Hilton Hotel. She didn't want everyone to know about this. Be good. Don't hang up first. On the other end of the phone, Bailey Yun chuckled. He then instructed the chauffeur and put the phone to his ear. What are you doing now? Li Duobao touched her nose, and there was a touch of shyness on her face. I just woke up. His tone was gentle. Have you not eaten breakfast yet? She replied with an Are you hungry? I'm not very hungry yet. Then wait for me for another 20 minutes. Let's have breakfast together. Shi Gigai replied with an oh. Her voice was so soft that it fell on Bailey Yun's heart like cotton candy. His narrow foxy eyes were filled with smiles. Wear more clothes. It's a little cold outside. Got it. His voice was so gentle that it could drip water. She blushed even more. She bit her lips and lied uncomfortably. I'll hang up first. I have to call my mother to tell her that I'm safe. Although he was a little reluctant, he still let her hang up the phone. He played with his phone in his hand and urged the chauffeur, Drive faster. Li Duobao patted her cheeks in front of the mirror and slowly exhaled. She was so annoyed. She didn't know how to face Bai Liyun. Her delicate eyebrows furrowed. She thought that she should properly sort out her feelings for him. She changed into a white sweater, a red checkered skirt, lambskin boots, a woolen coat, and a fluffy hat on her head. When Bailey Yun's car stopped outside the hotel, he saw Li Duobao standing upright with her hands in her coat pockets. She lowered her head slightly and stared at her toes. Her black satin hair was draped over her chest, and she was as obedient as a cute little white rabbit. He smiled brightly and jogged in front of her. He reached out and knocked on her head. He chuckled and said, Hey, come back to your senses. What are you thinking about? Li Duobao looked up at him, a pure smile blooming on her round apple face. Her big watery eyes moved. Bailey Yun, I'm hungry. Bailey Yun smiled brightly and patted her head. Let's go. I'll take you to eat something delicious. She put her hands behind her back like a little old man and followed behind him with her head lowered. He took her to a very cozy restaurant. She drank the fragrant milk in small sips. Her stomach and body warmed up. He sat quietly opposite her with a doting smile on his face. He drank black coffee, completely ignoring the adoring gazes of the women around him. Bailey Yun had already eaten breakfast on the plane, but in order to accompany her, he ordered a fried egg and ham. He slowly ate the fried egg on the plate. What time are you going back tomorrow? Li Duobao wiped the corner of her lips with a tissue. Tomorrow morning. What are your plans today? She shook her head. I plan to rest in the hotel for the day. His beautiful foxy eyes blinked and the corners of his lips curled up. It's boring to stay in the hotel. I'll take you around New York City. She smiled embarrassedly. You just came back. You must have a lot of things to do. I won't trouble you. He threw her a flirtatious look. Why are you being so polite with me? Those things will be dealt with tomorrow. It's more important to accompany you. Li Duobao smiled awkwardly. Well, there's really no need. Bai Liyun gradually retracted his smile. His deep eyes stared at her porcelain white and lustrous little face. Did I trouble you? His tone was a little bleak and there was a faint loneliness in his eyes. She actually felt her heart ache and hurriedly explained, No, I just haven't thought of how to respond to you. So, can you give me some time? Bailey Yun held her soft hand and smiled. Duobao, you didn't reject me immediately. Does that mean I still have a chance? Li Duobao blushed and tried to pull her hand away. He held it very tightly and she didn't pull it away. Her voice was like a mosquito's buzzing. I like you a little too. Bailey Yun's long and narrow eyes suddenly shook and a trace of surprise flashed past quickly. He held her hand even tighter. If that's the case, what are you still hesitating for? Her face was so red that it was about to bleed. She bit her lips and lowered her head, not daring to look into his eyes. You used to have many girlfriends. I don't know how long your feelings for me can last. I just want to marry an honest man. A man who can love me for the rest of my life. Do you understand what I mean? At that moment, Bailey Yun's heart felt as if it had been pricked by a needle. It was a sharp pain. There was a price to pay for being young and frivolous. When he was fighting with Suzuki Chisakura for Xiao Bao's custody, he already understood this principle. At this moment, Li Duobao's distrust of him made him feel the pain of eating his own medicine once again. He was silent for a long time, so long that it made Li Duobao's heart ache. She hurriedly looked up. Bailey Yun, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Awesome novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 387. Bailey Yun smiled bitterly. No matter what happened in the past can't be changed. It's only right that you can't trust me. I'm also full of guilt about my past. I'll definitely wait until the moment you're willing to accept me. He held her hand tightly. Duobao, I'll let you understand that my feelings for you are sincere. If I had known that I would meet you, I would have kept my chastity for you. The words, keep your chastity, might be an exaggeration, but it deeply hit Li Duobao's heart. Her heart trembled. In his eyes, she saw determination and affection. However, Yu once said that men were the best at lying. Li Duobao thought for a moment and said, I still can't give you an answer immediately. Bailey Yun, let's start as friends, okay? She raised her small face, her eyes as clear as crystals. Bailey Yun let go of her hand and smiled. Okay, I said that I'll give you time until you accept me. The corners of her lips curled up high, and her face was filled with a bright smile. She clasped her hands together with an expectant expression. Then what are we going to do today? You said just now that you're going to take me out for a walk. Bailey Yun chuckled. This girl's thoughts jumped really quickly. However, she didn't want him to accompany her just now, but now she changed her mind. It could be considered an improvement. His pair of beautiful foxy eyes curved, and he used his finger to poke her perky little nose. He said dotingly, I know you like to play, so I'm playing with you today. You can go anywhere you want. I don't know where to go. I'm not familiar with this place at all. Li Duobao frowned in distress. Bailey Yun raised his eyebrows and smiled. Then come with me. There's a cosplay comic today. Really? That's great. I like it the most. Then let's go quickly. Otherwise, there will be too many people and we won't be able to squeeze into the exhibition hall. Li Duobao's eyes lit up, and her face was filled with excitement. Bailey Yun's lips curled up, and he was in a good mood. Through this period of time together, Bailey Yun had already understood her personality. She was naive and cheerful, and her personality was like a child's. The things she liked were more childish, such as amusement parks, horror cities, anime, and so on. As for the shopping and beauty that other girls liked, she was uninterested. Therefore, after understanding her personality, it wasn't difficult to cater to her interests. On the way to meet Li Duobao, Bailey Yun had already checked the news. After finding out that there was a Comic-Con, he found a way to contact with the organizer to obtain a certain amount of preferential treatment. For example, they did not need to line up and could directly enter the exhibition hall through the VIP channel. The scene of the expo was very grand. Not only was it a carnival for anime fans, but it was also a platform for the anime industry from all over the world to display and communicate with each other. The world's top cosplay teams and cosplay experts were gathered here, as well as internationally renowned anime artists, scriptwriters, directors, voice actors, and so on. The exciting and explosive scene ignited the enthusiasm of anime fans and shocked their visual nerves. It was Li Duobao's first time attending such a grand Comic-Con. She screamed excitedly with the crowd around her, shouting for her favorite anime characters and manga artists. Her round face was full of smiles, and she was in high spirits. Her passionate appearance was like a bright ray of sunlight, stored in Bailey Yun's heart, making him reluctant to let her go. There were many people at the scene. Bailey Yun was worried that she would be squeezed by others, so he stayed by her side to protect her. He used his arms and chest to draw a protective circle for her, allowing her to be wholeheartedly immersed in her happiness. Ah, Bailey Yun, look, cosplay Pirates of the Caribbean, Captain Jack is really like it. It's super stylish. Li Duobao didn't realize that she was in someone's arms at all. She excitedly tugged at someone's arm and pointed at the pirate captain in the cosplay group. Her eyes were full of red hearts. Bailey Yun was jealous, and it was very serious. He looked critically at the cosplayer on the stage. The iconic loose pleated shirt, pirate headband, exaggerated accessories, velvet jacket, and skull badge. The gorgeous mix revealed a strong sense of wildness and rebellion, especially the pair of deep eyes. They were unruly and arrogant, very similar to the characters in the original work. He snorted disdainfully. The cosplayer's figure wasn't as good as his. If he went on stage, the effect would be better. Bailey Yun glanced at Li Duobao with dissatisfaction. Her hands were clasped together and her eyes were full of red hearts. The jealousy in his heart grew stronger. He put his arm around her shoulder and dragged her out of the exhibition area. What are you doing? I haven't seen enough. Li Duobao waved her arms and struggled. Let's go over there. Don't you like horror movies? There's a Silent Hill cosplay over there. Bailey Yun squinted his foxy eyes and showed a charming smile, tempting someone. Ah, really? Let's go, let's go. Li Duobao's eyes suddenly widened, and she was full of energy. Instead, she pulled his arm and rushed forward. After a few steps, she suddenly stopped and turned her head. She missed someone's triumphant smile. She was confused. Bailey Yun, aren't you afraid of ghosts? Won't you be afraid of cosplay? No. Bailey Yun was in a good mood. He rubbed her hair. He didn't expect this girl to still remember him at this time. Really, won't you be afraid? Silent Hill is very scary. Li Duobao confirmed with him seriously. Really, I won't be afraid with you by my side. Let's go. Bailey Yun smiled warmly. He held her hand and walked through the crowd to another exhibition area. Li Duobao tilted his head and looked at his handsome side profile. A smile bloomed on his lips. Bailey Yun, thank you. I'm very happy today. Bailey Yun turned his head and winked at her. As long as you're happy. Look, don't we look like we're on a date now? She mumbled. If you say so, then so be it. He blinked his eyes and moved his handsome face closer to her. What did you say? I didn't hear you clearly. She was shocked when his face suddenly enlarged in front of her. She reached out to cover his face and pushed it back gently. It's fine if you didn't hear me. I didn't say anything. Little rascal, you just said it. Don't you want to admit it so soon? He allowed her soft little hand to rest on his face as he spoke with a light smile. As his lips opened and closed, the moment his lips touched her palm, a wave of numbness suddenly rippled out from the place where he touched her. Li Duobao hurriedly retracted her hand like a child who had done something wrong. She looked around frantically and refused to look at him. The girl was so shy that Bai Li Yun didn't want to push her too hard. He didn't want her to hide herself like an ostrich. He grabbed her hand as if nothing had happened and changed the topic with a smile. Duobao, what's your favorite anime character? Li Duobao said without hesitation, Crayon Shin-chan. Bailey Yun coughed. Let's change it. A man. An adult. She chuckled. Tuho Shirsi, a character from the anime, Silver Soul. Looking at this girl's shy appearance, Bai Liyun's heart was filled with jealousy. Well, it was Tsukata Shirsi. While she was watching the cosplay show with great interest, he quietly took out his mobile phone and searched for him on Baidu. It turned out that he was a hot-tempered and cold person, but he was upright and very popular with women. Bailey Yun secretly remembered it and pressed Li Duobao's head gently. Duobao, who's your favorite female anime character? Li Duobao's eyes were fixed on the performance on stage. She took the time to answer him. Kagura-chan. What's Kagura-chan? Bailey Yun continued to Baidu secretly. Oh, so she's also a character from Silver Soul. She's a loli wearing a China-style red cheongsam. She looks innocent and cute, but she's actually very strong. She also has a very strong stomach. When she's hungry, she can swallow a cow. She's definitely talking about her. Bailey Yun raised his foxy eyes slightly, and his lips curled into a smug smile. He seemed to be thinking of something. Ladies and gentlemen, please be quiet. After the performance, the host appeared with a microphone. Today, in order to thank everyone for coming, we have specially prepared a small program. We will select a man and a woman from the audience as guests. The selected guests will have the honor of experiencing the real-life cosplay provided by us for free. No matter which anime or movie character you want to cosplay as, we can fulfill your wish. Now, please raise your right hand and let me see your desire. Wow, that's great. I want to participate. Choose me, please, you must choose me. Everyone in the venue was excited. Li Duobao's blood was boiling, and her face was glowing with a different kind of expression. She hugged Bai Liyun's arm and cheered. This is so fun. I want to participate too. Bai Liyun's lips curled. Okay. But there are so many people. I might not be chosen. Li Duobao looked around. There was a sea of people, and everyone was raising their arms high and shouting, "Choose me." She was immediately discouraged. Bai Liyun smiled brightly. You'll definitely be chosen. Believe me, I'm a prophet. She stuck out her tongue playfully. I won't believe your prophecy. I'll let you see that my prophecy is correct. Bai Liyun grabbed her right hand and raised it high in the air. The host exclaimed, Wow, so there are so many people who want to try. Unfortunately, we only have 2 spots. Who are these 2 lucky fellows? Here. Many people couldn't hold back and shook their right hand hard. The host shrugged. I really want to give the enthusiastic friends over there a chance. Unfortunately, the decision is not in my hands. Let's welcome the organizer's person in charge, Mr. John. Add, Hongcha 866. Chapter 388. A man in his 40s slowly walked onto the stage and exchanged a few words. His gaze slowly scanned the venue. Every time his gaze swept over a direction, it would cause an excited scream. Li Duobao's heart also jumped. Her heart was thumping, and her beautiful big eyes were fixed on John. She didn't notice that Bai Liyun and John had a brief exchange of glances. John smiled and finally, his gaze fell on Bai Liyun and Li Duobao. He extended his right hand in their direction. Let's invite Miss and her boyfriend, who are wearing a coat and a white hat, onto the stage. Li Duobao looked in the direction John extended his hand and quickly looked around. She saw that the people around her were staring at her and Bai Liyun with envy. Only then did she believe that there was nothing wrong with her ears. They were really lucky to be chosen. She was immersed in great joy and even ignored the way Mr. John addressed Bai Liyun, her boyfriend. Miss, please come on stage with your boyfriend, the host said with a kind smile. Only then did Li Duobao notice how they addressed her. Her cheeks were burning, and she glanced at Bai Liyun in embarrassment. Bai Liyun smiled comfortingly, held her hand, and whispered, Don't be afraid. I'm here. She wasn't afraid. She was just a little shy. The audience automatically parted to make a path. Bai Liyun held Li Duobao's hand with a calm smile on his face and slowly walked onto the stage. The host smiled and said, Miss, may I know your surname? I'm lucky to be selected as a guest. Do you have anything you want to say? Bai Liyun glanced at Li Duobao. He thought she would have stage fright. He was prepared to be a hero and save the damsel in distress. He didn't expect her to be as calm as she was on the plane. Her cheeks were still flushed, but her expression was calm. She held the microphone in her hand and smiled cutely. My name is Li Duobao. I'm a Chinese. I'm a fan of anime. I'm very grateful to Mr. John for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. Sir, as Miss Li's boyfriend, what do you think of her hobbies? The host raised the microphone in front of Bai Liyun. Raising his brows, Bai Liyun humorously replied, Thank you for your recognition. Actually, I'm not Duobao's boyfriend yet, but I'm working towards that identity. There's an idiom in China called, love the house, love the crow. It means that if you love someone, you have to love the crow on her roof as well. I even love the crow on her roof, let alone her interests and hobbies. There were many Chinese in the audience. When they heard his teasing confession, they all cheered and applauded for him. Some people even whistled and shouted in Chinese, Together, together. Bai Liyun confessed in front of so many people. Li Duobao was so embarrassed that his face turned red, but his heart was as sweet as honey. Although the host didn't understand Chinese, he roughly understood what the audience meant. He humorously teased, "Miss Li is so beautiful, so the crow on her roof must be beautiful as well. I wish the two of you a happy ending." "Thank you." Bailey Yun politely shook hands with the host. "You're welcome. Now, let's invite the two of you to the backstage to get your makeup done." The staff led Bailey Yun and Li Duobao to the backstage dressing room. There were many dressing rooms here, and the names of the countries were pasted on the door. The staff led them to the dressing room of the Japanese cosplay team. Stepping into the dressing room, Li Duobao was so happy that she almost fainted. She saw many famous cosplayers, and they were all wearing costumes from anime characters. They were sitting in front of the dressing mirror and putting on their makeup. There were several rows of cosplay costumes in the room, and there were all kinds of styles. The leader was a very handsome man, and he was also a famous cosplayer. He was very enthusiastic towards Bailey Yun and Li Duobao. He asked the female assistant to lead Li Duobao to the girls' dressing room, and he personally led Bailey Yun to the men's dressing room. The leader's slender fingers supported his chin as he smiled. "Mr. Bailey, who do you want to cosplay as? I personally suggest that you cosplay as Sha Shengmaru. Your temperament is closer to him." Bailey Yun sat in front of the dressing mirror and looked at the leader through the mirror. He smiled. "Thank you for your suggestion, but I already have a target." More than an hour later, after the makeup artist's meticulous work, Bai Liyun's style was completed. The leader looked at him carefully and his face was full of surprise. "Mr. Bai Liyun, if you want to join our team, we will welcome you very much." The corners of Bai Liyun's lips curled up. "I appreciate your good intentions. So, my current appearance is considered very successful?" "Of course, it's very successful. This is the best cosplay of this character that I have ever seen." The leader did not hide his admiration for him. Bailey Yun smiled happily and touched his thin chin. With his current appearance, he should be able to charm that little girl. The sound of footsteps could be heard, and Li Duobao, who had finished cosplaying, appeared. Bailey Yun slowly turned around, wanting to give a certain someone a surprise. In the end, before the other party could be surprised, he was the first to be shocked. His eyes widened slightly as he looked at Li Duobao, who was standing not far away. She was wearing a white and black striped uniform and a pair of riding boots. Her hair was short, and her thin bangs slightly covered her slightly blood-red eyes. Under the hairstyle, her nose was high, and her chin looked sharp. When she smiled, the sharp teeth in her mouth were revealed. If he guessed correctly, she should be cosplaying as a vampire, and it was a man. No, Bailey Yun comforted himself. Perhaps it was just a man who looked like Li Duobao. However, the man who looked like Li Duobao shattered his fantasy. She had a surprised smile on her face as she jogged in front of him. "It's Jashiru Kikata. Bailey Yun, you actually cosplayed as Jashiru Kikata. That's great." Bailey Yun was wearing a black Japanese-style bathrobe. The collar was slightly open, revealing his delicate collarbone and a little bit of his chest. His hairstyle was exactly the same as Jashiru Kikata in the anime. In order to portray his smoking characteristics, Bailey Yun's slender fingers held an electronic cigarette. His eyes were deep, as if he was thinking about an important life question. Bailey Yun's mouth twitched. "Didn't you say that you liked Kagura? Why did you cosplay as a man?" Li Duobao chuckled. "Kagura is only 13 or 14 years old. If I cosplayed as her age, it wouldn't be suitable. Actually, I always wanted to cosplay as a vampire, so I cosplayed as a vampire knight. Isn't it handsome?" Bai Liyun silently cried in his heart. Handsome, very handsome. The feeling of her pretending to be a man was actually quite good. However, he wanted to stand together with her as a man and a woman, not as two men. Ah, bastard. Li Duobao didn't understand the pain and struggle in Bailey Yun's heart at all. She nervously and embarrassedly twisted her fingers. "Bailey Yun, can I hug you?" Bailey Yun was ecstatic, and the knot in his heart was swept away. However, her next sentence made him feel that his life was bleak again. "I really like Jashiru Kikata. You cosplay as if a two-dimensional character came to life in the third dimension." She blinked her wet eyes and said pitifully, "So, can you let me hug you?" Bai Li Yun was about to suffer internal injuries. Why was it that when he, a handsome and confident man, stood in front of her, she had never been infatuated with him? When he dressed up as a two-dimensional character, he was able to easily capture her heart. However, seeing that she was hugging his body, Bailey Yun felt a little more comfortable in his heart. He generously opened his arms and said, "Come." Thus, the vampire knight happily threw herself into Joshiru Kikata's arms. If one didn't look carefully, it would be two men hugging each other affectionately. This scene was seen by everyone in the dressing room. Some people kindly jeered, some people found it funny and whistled, and some people quickly took photos of this gay scene with their phones. "Sorry to disturb you." The host's assistant knocked on the door of the dressing room and walked in. His eyes rolled twice on the hugging men, and finally landed on the head. He asked in surprise, "Head, Mr. Bailey and Miss Lee, are they not ready yet?" The head laughed out loud and pointed at the men. "They are ready." The assistant was so shocked that his eyeballs almost fell out. Li Duobao raised her head from Bailey Yun's arms, raised her hand, and laughed. "I am Li Duobao. If the two of you are ready, please follow me to the front desk." The assistant coughed. He thought that it was two men, but it turned out that he misunderstood. Under the introduction of the host, the two of them made a grand entrance. What greeted them was the screams of the anime fans. Obviously, their cosplay exceeded the expectations of the anime fans. Bailey Yun wore a black bathrobe and wooden clogs on his feet, revealing a part of his calves. His exquisite and perfect facial features had a cold and elegant seduction. He had half a cigarette in his mouth and his eyes were slightly downcast. When everyone's eyes fell on him, he suddenly raised his eyes and stared fiercely at them. He arrogantly shouted, "I am the deputy head of the Truth Group, Joshiru Kikata." The anime fans screamed wildly and were so excited that they almost fainted. There was only one voice in the entire venue like thunder. "Joshiru Kikata! Joshiru Kikata! I love you!" When Li Duobao came on stage, her role as a vampire knight also attracted crazy cheers. As a stewardess, she was tall to begin with. Coupled with the effect of the stylist's uncanny workmanship, almost no one would suspect that she was a woman just by looking at her appearance. She hid the signature sweet smile on her face and showed her cold and taciturn side. The loneliness and sadness in her eyes broke the hearts of many women. Someone in the audience shouted, "Jolon Shusama and Joshiru Kikata kiss, please applaud." The applause was like thunder and the audience shouted, "Kiss, kiss." Beauty novel, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 389. Li Duobao almost couldn't maintain the indifference on her face. She was so embarrassed that she just wanted to find a hole to hide in. Bailey Yun reached out and hugged her shoulder. He shouted arrogantly, "You bastards, how dare you bully my woman? All of you, go and commit seppuku." Seppuku was a classic line of Joshiru Tokata. The venue was once again in an uproar. At that moment, Li Duobao's heart raced. She looked up at his handsome side profile and had an indescribable feeling in her heart. She had an impulse to jump into his arms. At that moment, she didn't want to hug Joshiru Tokata, but Bailey Yun himself. The event was finally over. Li Duobao heaved a sigh of relief. She shamelessly asked Bailey Yun to take many photos for her as a souvenir. She also called a staff member and asked him to take a few photos of her and Bailey Yun. She flipped through the photos saved in her phone and laughed foolishly. Bailey Yun leaned in front of her, raised his foxy eyes, and smiled slyly. "Am I very handsome?" Li Duobao only stared at the photos and didn't look at him at all. "I'm looking at Joshiru Tokata. He's so handsome." Bailey Yun was very sad. Why? What was so good about that grumpy two-dimensional man? He really wanted to find a place to lick his fur and heal his wounds. Li Duobao stole a glance at a certain someone who seemed to have suffered a terrible blow. She covered her mouth and laughed secretly. After the two of them changed their clothes and removed their makeup, Li Duobao went to the bathroom. When she came out of the bathroom, Li Duobao didn't see Bailey Yun. She thought that maybe he was waiting for her in the hall. When she passed by the corridor, she saw two figures leaning against the railing. One of them was Bailey Yun, whom she was very familiar with. The other person could only be seen from the back, so she didn't know who it was. They were talking, so she didn't want to disturb them. She planned to stay where she was and wait for them to finish talking before going up. However, they were too close. Their conversation still drifted into her ears clearly. Bailey Yun said, "Mr. John, thank you for everything you've done for me." John laughed heartily. "You're welcome. It's our honor that you and Miss Lee are satisfied." Bailey Yun smiled and shook hands with him. "I wish us a pleasant cooperation. I look forward to working with you." The two exchanged a few more pleasantries and ended the conversation. John left in another direction. Li Duobao watched his back disappear into the distance before walking towards Bailey Yun. Bailey Yun heard footsteps and turned around with a warm smile on his face. "It's time for dinner. What do you want to eat?" Li Duobao stared at him with his big black eyes. "You know Mr. John? He was the one who arranged for us to be guests, right?" Bailey Yun rubbed his nose. "You heard everything?" Li Duobao nodded. "Did you guys make some kind of deal? Otherwise, why would he help us?" "Fool, don't overcomplicate things." Bailey Yun smiled dotingly. "He and I are old friends. I asked him to arrange for us to cosplay, and he readily agreed." Li Duobao looked at him suspiciously. "I clearly heard you guys say a pleasant cooperation. John actually runs an anime magazine. I plan to talk to him about the game adaptation rights for anime." Bailey Yun actually lied. They weren't old friends, but he used the game adaptation as a topic to negotiate with John. "Oh, so that's how it is." Li Duobao blinked. Bai Li Yun ruffled her hair, his face full of helplessness. Aren't you focusing on the wrong thing? I've spent so much effort, shouldn't you be touched? Even if you don't faint, you should at least cry a little." Li Duobao burst out laughing. Bailey Yun felt like he was being mocked. He rubbed his nose with his face covered in dirt, and tears flowed silently to his heart. Sigh, who asked him to like a little woman who was lacking in her brain. Seeing him hurt like a cute little fox, Li Duobao covered her mouth and continued to laugh. He helplessly pressed her head. "Let's go and have dinner." She suddenly threw herself into his arms, her soft body leaning against his chest. She wrapped her arms around his waist and said softly, "Let me hug you." Bailey Yun looked at the little woman who was burying her head in his arms like an ostrich. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I haven't hugged you enough. Joshiru Dokata has already returned to the 2D world," she said in a muffled voice. "I know. I'm hugging Bailey Yun now." Bailey Yun's face immediately brightened. He couldn't wait to sing a song. He unceremoniously wrapped his arms around her slender waist and smiled happily. "Please don't stand on ceremony. You can hug me as long as you want." "Go to hell. Don't take advantage of me." Li Duobao pushed his chest and said with her cheeks puffed up, "I've hugged you enough. Let go of me." Unreasonable little baddie. Although he muttered unhappily, Bailey Yun still let go of her gigai. Li Duobao snickered. Bailey Yun drove her to a Chinese restaurant in Chinatown for dinner. Then, he took her to see the night scenery for a while before sending her back to the hotel. He sent her all the way to the door of her room. Li Duobao took out the room card from her handbag and opened the door. After hesitating for a moment, she said, "Do you want to come in and sit for a while?" Bailey Yun said in all seriousness, "It's already very late. It might not be convenient for me to go in. You should rest early." Shigigai replied with an, "Oh," and waved her little paw. "Then be careful on the way. I'll go in first." Bailey Yun nodded. The room door closed. She actually closed the door in front of him. Bailey Yun angrily patted his cheek. "You're asking for it. Why did you say it was inconvenient? Just go in and sit for a while." He stood at the door dejectedly for a while. Then he sighed and turned around, intending to leave. Unexpectedly, the door suddenly opened. He quickly turned around and saw Li Duobao standing at the door uneasily. Her face was abnormally red, and her hands were nervously wringing her fingers. Bailey Yun coughed and said, "What's wrong?" Li Duobao bit her lip and quickly said, "I'll contact you the next time I come to New York. Goodbye." With a bang, the door was forcefully closed. Bailey Yun stood there in a daze. His smart brain seemed to have turned into a block of wood. After a few minutes, he finally understood what she meant. He beamed, and the corners of his mouth reached his ears. He excitedly patted the door and shouted, Duobao, when you return to China, you must miss me. I'll always miss you too. When you're not at work, you're not allowed to turn off your phone, you're not allowed to reject my calls, and you're not allowed to not reply to my messages. In the room, Li Duobao's back was leaning against the door. When he knocked on the door, the vibration was transmitted to her body. It was as if he was right beside her. Listening to his long-winded exhortations, she didn't feel annoyed at all. She cupped her burning cheeks with both hands and chuckled. Duobao, I'm leaving. Have a good rest tonight. Good night. The sound of knocking on the door finally stopped, and the conversation on the other side of the door also stopped. Li Yun muttered in a low voice, I really hope that girl will suddenly jump out and give me another hug. Unfortunately, Li Duobao didn't fulfill his wish this time. However, she softly replied, Good night. Unfortunately, he didn't hear it. It was quiet outside the door. Li Duobao opened the door and took a look. The corridor was empty. Li Yun had finally left. She stood there with a pout, feeling a little disappointed. Li Yun stood at the end of the corridor and quietly poked his head out. When he saw the little woman standing at the door in a daze, the corners of his lips curled up. He suppressed the urge to run back and hug her. He hid behind the wall until she returned to the room and locked the door. Oh, you've fallen quite deeply, Li Yun muttered in a low voice as he raised his hand and patted his forehead. For Li Yun, there were two things that were the most torturous. One was seeing Xiao Bao once a month. Sometimes, he missed her so much that he couldn't sleep. The second was his long-distance relationship with Li Duobao. She would stay in New York for 2 days almost every half a month. When she wasn't in New York, or when there was no way to contact her while on a flight mission, it was a kind of torture for Li Yun. There was only one way to relieve the pain of lovesickness, and that was to work hard and enter the China market as soon as possible. When the time came, he would stay in City A and marry Li Duobao. His wife and son would warm the bed. Everything would be perfect. Li Yun touched his chin and planned for the future. He worked even harder. Japan. Matsuda Industrial Group's CEO's office. Suzuki Chisakura sat in the office chair. There was no expression on her delicate and beautiful face. Her eyes stared coldly at the two men in suits who were bent over the desk. The stagnant atmosphere was suffocating. Pa! She suddenly slammed the desk and said coldly, Why didn't you tell me about this earlier? The two men bent even lower. One of them replied, When we found out about this, you had already ordered to withdraw the surveillance on Li Yun and his family. We thought it wasn't important, so we didn't report it immediately. B*****. Suzuki Chisakura's phoenix eyes turned cold. She exuded a vicious aura. Your mission is to report everything you find out to me, not to judge for me what's important and what's not. If you can't even do this, what's the point of me keeping you? If she had known that Li Yun was in contact with Li Duobao, and if she had known that Li Yun cared about Li Duobao, she could have used Li Duobao to threaten him. Perhaps she would have won the battle for Xiao Bao's custody. We're very sorry. We won't do it again. The two men bowed deeply. The man who replied earlier said, Madam, please give us another chance. We won't let you down. Suzuki Chisakura's breathing steadied. She raised her hand to tuck her hair. A vicious look flashed across her eyes. She said indifferently, Okay, I can give you another chance. I hate that woman called Li Duobao. Teach her a lesson. At Xinwu 799. Chapter 390. The two of them answered in unison. Yes. Suzuki Sakura's eyes flickered as she continued. Didn't you say that she's flying to New York? Don't deal with her in City A. Wait until she's in New York. I don't understand. Isn't it more convenient in City A? Suzuki Sakura said coldly, Idiot. If something happens to Li Duobao in City A and her parents report it, the police will definitely investigate. If something happens to her in a foreign country, who will care about her? Understood. Suzuki Sakura looked at their backs as they left. Her lips curled into a cold smile. Li Yun, not only did you not care about our past relationship, you even took my son away from me and ruined my plans. I won't let you and your mistress have it easy. Li Duobao didn't know that a crisis was approaching her. After returning from New York, she rested for 2 days and then flew to England. Next, she would fly to New York. During this period of time, Bai Liyun would call her every day or send her a text message, which made her feel warm and worried. That feeling was very strange. Although she had not agreed to be in a relationship with him, the balance in her heart was already leaning towards him. Li Duobao walked slowly in her beautiful and elegant flight attendant uniform. She dragged her suitcase with one hand and held her phone with the other. There was a sweet smile on her lips. Okay, I got it. I'm going to start work soon. See you tomorrow. Bai Liyun stood in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling window in his office and looked at the skyscraper opposite. His slender fingers held his phone tightly as he laughed softly. See you tomorrow, Duobao. I miss you very much. Li Duobao's eyes curved as she replied softly, After ending the call, her heart was still warm. Her colleague poked her with her arm and smiled ambiguously. Duobao, you have a boyfriend? Li Duobao blushed. Don't talk nonsense. We're just ordinary friends. Her colleague teased. Oh, just ordinary friends. Then why are you blushing? I'm not. I saw it clearly. Stop fooling around, it's time to board. After more than 10 hours of flight, she would arrive in New York. Thinking that he would be able to see her soon, Bai Liyun's tiredness was swept away. He was rejuvenated and his blood was boiling. He energetically held a department meeting and personally led a team to discuss the cooperation with the mainland manufacturers. Thank you for taking this flight. I wish you a pleasant journey. When the plane finally arrived in New York, Li Duobao sent the last passenger out of the cabin. After finishing the last bit of work, he and his colleagues took the bus and checked in at the hotel booked by the airline. She had just finished packing when Bai Liyun called. Duobao, have you arrived in New York? I have to meet a very important client later, so I can only come to see you at noon. Li Duobao rolled his black eyes. Sure, no problem. I was just about to catch up on my sleep. By the way, I don't think I've asked you before. What's the name of your company? Bai Liyun chuckled. Alden High-Tech Company. He wanted to say something else, but his secretary knocked on his office door. President, Mr. Smith is already here. He's waiting for you in the conference room. Bai Liyun raised his hand and gestured for him to wait. Then he said to Li Duobao, Duobao, the client is here. I'll hang up first. See you at noon. Okay, see you at noon. After Li Duobao ended the call, she threw the phone on the bed and ran to the computer table happily. She quickly turned on the computer. She planned to check Bai Liyun's company address and then sneak to his company to give him a surprise. She checked the address, took a shower, and rested for an hour. Then, she took out a set of clothes from her suitcase and changed. She wore a light green windbreaker, a white lace skirt, and a pair of suede boots. She looked youthful and beautiful. She carried a white leather bag in her hand and went out in a good mood. Li Duobao had just walked out of the hotel when a taxi stopped by the road. The driver with a beard took out a photo from his pocket. He looked at Li Duobao and then looked at the woman in the photo. The corners of his lips curled up in satisfaction. It seemed that it was her. Taxi. Li Duobao stood by the road and stretched out her right hand. A taxi slowly drove in front of her. The driver with a beard looked at her casually. Miss, where are you going? Li Duobao opened the back door and sat in the car. She smiled politely. Seagram Building. Thank you. No problem, the driver replied calmly. He started the car and drove further and further away from the hotel she was staying at. Although Li Duobao didn't know much about New York, she used her phone to navigate the route to Seagram Building. So when the driver deviated from the route, she immediately reminded him, Mr. Driver, you seem to be going the wrong way. That's right, Mississippi. This road can also lead to Seagram Building, and it'll be faster. The driver looked at her through the rearview mirror. She couldn't see his expression because half of his face was covered by his beard, but there was something in his eyes that made her very uncomfortable. She thought it was her imagination and didn't take it to heart. She smiled. So that's how it is. The driver didn't say anything else and drove quietly. As time passed, Li Duobao felt more and more that something was wrong. According to the navigation on her phone, they were getting further and further away from their destination. She felt uneasy and made a prompt decision. Mr. Driver, please stop the car. I want to get out. Miss, don't worry. We'll be there soon. The driver didn't stop the car. Instead, he drove faster. Li Duobao didn't believe him anymore. Her expression changed, and she secretly dialed Bailey Yun's number. After 2 rings, the call was picked up. Duobao, what's wrong? Bailey Yun, The driver suddenly braked. Li Duobao's body suddenly fell forward, and the phone in her hand fell on the car. She quickly bent down to pick it up. The driver quickly jumped out of the driver's seat and quickly opened the back door. Just as she picked up the phone, Bailey Yun's anxious voice came through. Hello, Duobao, what happened? Bailey Yun, save me. Let go of me, let go. Before Li Duobao could finish speaking, the driver grabbed her hair with one hand and dragged her out. The other hand snatched the phone in her hand and threw it in the middle of the road. A car sped past and crushed the plane. Li Duobao struggled with punches and kicks. What are you doing? Let go of me, let go. The driver cursed in English and suddenly raised his hand to hit the back of her head. Li Duobao's vision turned black, and she collapsed in his arms. In the meeting room, Bailey Yun's face was cold, and his thin lips were pursed. With the last bit of rationality, he apologized to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, I'm very sorry. My lover is in danger now, and I have to save her. Our meeting has to be rescheduled. Smith was very reasonable and said solemnly, If I can help, please don't hesitate. Bailey Yun shook his hand. Thank you very much. Bailey Yun was burning with anxiety. From the analysis of the situation on the phone, Duobao must have met with an accident. This was New York, a city with a very high crime rate. He could hardly imagine what would happen to a weak woman like her if she fell into the hands of criminals. Damn it, why didn't he accompany her? If he had postponed the meeting today, none of this would have happened. Bailey Yun blamed himself and was anxious. He quickly contacted the hotel staff. The hotel said that there was no one in Li Duobao's room. The doorman saw her leave the hotel an hour and a half ago and take a taxi. Bailey Yun asked anxiously, What's the license plate number of the taxi? I'm sorry, our staff didn't pay attention. Now, they could only check the taxi company's vehicle records to locate which taxi Li Duobao was in. However, this could only be done by the police. When Bailey Yun was young and frivolous, he had dealings with the New York underworld. He had also been to the police station many times and had even made friends with a few police detectives. Now, these connections could be put to good use. He contacted his former underworld friends and asked them to help find Li Duobao's whereabouts. On the other hand, he asked the New York Police Department to come forward and find out that there were more than 10 taxis that had picked up passengers outside the hotel. After the police investigated these cars, they finally locked on to one of the taxis. Unexpectedly, during the investigation, the driver of the taxi claimed that his car had been robbed. The person who robbed his car was a man with a full beard and sunglasses. The investigation was a race against time. Every second delayed meant that Li Duobao would be in more danger. It was the first time Bailey Yun was so frightened. He tried his best to control his emotions. While waiting for the results of the police investigation, he looked around for ways to inquire about Li Duobao. Li Duobao's head was dizzy. In a trance, she felt someone pushing her body hard. A woman's voice shouted in her ear in English, Hey, wake up! She slowly opened her eyes and saw the face of a beautiful foreign woman. The woman retracted her hand, straightened her body, and hugged her shoulders with both hands. She's awake. Take her to put on makeup. Li Duobao's mind was in a mess. Before she could figure out the situation, a black man in a black vest and ripped jeans stood out from behind the woman. He grabbed Li Duobao's arm and dragged her up from the ground. Hey, what do you want? Let me go. Li Duobao struggled and refused to follow the black man. In these few seconds, she quickly looked around and found that she was in a dark room similar to a basement. She must have been kidnapped by the taxi driver and brought here. The foreign woman looked at her coldly. You've been sold to me. Gigai, listen to me. Otherwise you'll suffer. Li Duobao's head exploded with a bang. He had been sold? Was it the driver? She tried to calm herself down. Who sold me to you? How much? I want to redeem myself. Welfare, Song Shu 566. Chapter 391. The foreign woman laughed out loud. Redeem yourself? That's the funniest joke I've heard this year. Miss, you'll soon understand where I am. Li Duobao bit her lips, her eyes filled with determination. In this world, there's no price that can't be negotiated. Tell me, how much money do you want for you to let me go? The foreign woman crossed her arms and sneered. When I bought you, I spent 100,000 USD. Isn't it just 100,000 USD? I'll give it to you. Li Duobao said generously, but her heart was beating like a drum. 100,000 USD. How could she have that much money? But in order to stabilize the other party, she had no choice but to lie. I'll contact a friend right now and ask him to raise the money. The woman snorted. When I bought you, I spent 100,000. Now that I'm selling you, of course it'll be more than that. Li Duobao raised her chin. Then how much do you want? The woman walked closer to her, her eyes filled with greed. Li Duobao subconsciously retreated, but she was held tightly by the thug and had no room to dodge. She could only watch as the woman's right hand landed on her face. The woman caressed Li Duobao's smooth cheeks with a strange smile on her face. A beautiful Asian girl like you is very popular with those rich people. You can be auctioned off for at least $1 million USD. Li Duobao was shocked. Auction? She finally understood what this woman was doing. This must be an underground trading place, and she would be auctioned off as a commodity. This thought flashed through her mind, and she made a prompt decision. All right, $1 million it is. Yo, little girl, you're quite arrogant. Do you really have that much money? The woman's beautiful eyes were filled with suspicion as she sized her up. I don't, but my friend does. Li Duobao puffed out her chest and forced herself to be calm as she met her sharp gaze. My friend is the CEO of a high-tech company. He will definitely save me. The woman's eyes moved slightly as she stared at her thoughtfully, as if she was considering whether what she said was true or not. The air froze, and the surroundings were silent. Li Duobao nervously clenched her fists, waiting for the woman's decision. Suddenly, a melodious ringtone sounded, and the woman put the phone close to her ear. What's the matter? Sister Lisa, the client is making a ruckus. He wants to see the goods as soon as possible. The woman's eyes flashed and her red lips parted. All right, I understand. I'll be right there. She ended the call and looked at Li Duobao. She shrugged her shoulders and said, I'm sorry, but I can't make this deal with you. Tonight, all my clients are here for you. I can't ruin my own reputation. Most importantly, she had a hunch that the Chinese girl in front of her would be auctioned off for a very good price. After saying that, the woman waved her hand, and the black thug twisted Li Duobao's arm and walked out of the basement. Li Duobao did not give up. He turned around and shouted, Think about it again. I can still increase the price. The woman sneered and said no more. Li Duobao's heart was in a mess. She didn't know what to do. Bailey Yun should have found out that she was kidnapped. Would he come to save her? He would definitely come to save her, but the problem was, would he be able to find this place? Li Duobao was a little desperate. She was now being dragged by the thugs into an underground base. They turned several corners in the underground passage. When they stopped, they were already standing in front of a brightly lit room. What are you waiting for? Come in quickly. An old woman with heavy makeup pulled Li Duobao from the hands of the thugs and dragged her into the room. The black thug was like a door god, guarding the door with his hands behind his back. Yo, today's finale is the Dongfang girl. Before Li Duobao had time to look at the situation in front of her, 4 or 5 old women had already surrounded her. As if they were looking at goods, they looked at her up and down with a picky gaze. One touched her chin, the other touched her chest, and sighed. Dongfang girl, rare goods. Her face is not bad, but it's a pity that her chest is not big. An old woman opened her mouth and smiled wretchedly. What's there to be afraid of with a small chest? Some guests with unique tastes like it. All right, stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and help her dress up. It's going to be chaotic in front. The old women pulled Li Duobao into the bathtub. They took off her clothes in a flurry. Go away, don't touch me. Li Duobao hugged her chest in panic. Her legs kicked and struggled, splashing water everywhere. The women's clothes were all wet. Damn it, this girl is like a fighting dog. She's so fierce. With her like this, we can't give her a bath. The old woman who looked like the leader cursed and casually called out a person's name. Carolyn, Go get that thing and give her an injection. An old woman wearing a sexy red dress with sagging breasts and a wrinkled neck responded and quickly walked to the dressing table. She opened a box and took out a syringe from it. She approached Li Duobao with a strange smile on her shriveled face. Little girl, after you inject this thing, you have no choice but to be obedient. What is that? Go away, go away. Li Duobao opened her eyes wide in panic and struggled with all her strength. Sisters, hold her down for me. At Carolyn's command, everyone rushed forward and pressed Li Duobao tightly into the bathtub. No, I beg of you, let me go. Li Duobao's 4 limbs were held down, and she had no room to resist. Tears of panic gushed out of her eyes as she begged for mercy helplessly. However, no one helped her. They all looked at her coldly as she suffered. Carolyn pierced the syringe into her blood vessels, and the transparent liquid slowly injected into her body. Li Duobao leaned against the edge of the bathtub in despair. She didn't know what they injected into her body, but she knew that it definitely wasn't something good. She felt her hearing and vision gradually become blurry, as if she was isolated from the world. Her body felt as if there were 10,000 little worms crawling on it. It was numb and disgusting. Her clothes were stripped off, and her skin came into contact with the cold air. It was so cold that she shivered. Pairs of hands rubbed her body forcefully or used a soft brush to wash her. Her limbs were sore and weak, and she couldn't stop them. She could only passively accept it. After an unknown period of time, a green sea appeared in front of her. She felt as if she was swimming in the clouds, and she felt as light as a feather. The scene changed, and it became a beautiful field under the setting sun. She and Bailey Yun strolled hand in hand. He smiled gently and charmingly. He kissed her lips and whispered affectionately, Duobao, I love you. Li Duobao had already been dragged to the dressing room by the group of people. She leaned against the back of the chair and looked at the ceiling in a daze, giggling foolishly. Just as she was immersed in the illusion brought about by the hallucinogenic drugs, the old women finished putting on her makeup and put on a sexy translucent underwear. They also smeared a layer of transparent liquid on her body. Under the illumination of the light, her whole body glowed brightly like a pearl. She was so beautiful that it was suffocating. All right, quickly bring her up to the stage. Unknowingly, Lisa appeared at the entrance of the dressing room. She crossed her arms and looked at Li Duobao indifferently. When Li Duobao was brought to the auction stage, she was still stumbling and couldn't even walk steadily. The dazzling light suddenly enveloped her body, but she didn't react at all. She stared blankly at the group of sanctimonious rich people below the stage. This was a brightly lit hall with luxurious decorations. The stage was filled with men in suits and leather shoes. Most of them were young people, and there were a few middle-aged and old men. Li Duobao's face was still intoxicated by the hallucinogen. That beautiful face had a dazed and silly expression, which simply had a fatal charm. The noisy stage suddenly quieted down. The host held the microphone in his hand and excitedly introduced, Gentlemen, the beautiful miss that you see now is our most dazzling pearl tonight. Look at her delicate skin, perky breasts and buttocks, as well as that slender waist and slender legs. It will definitely make you want to die. The host used vulgar words to describe Li Duobao's body, arousing the enthusiasm of the audience below the stage. He even reached out his hand to touch her face in disgust. This skin is as smooth and tender as a peeled egg. It's really enchanting. Most importantly, she's still an uncultivated virgin. Everyone, let's not wait any longer. Let's start the bidding. The starting price is $500,000. The audience below the stage used greedy and obscene gazes to linger on Li Duobao's body. They estimated her value in their hearts. A fat middle-aged man had already raised the sign in his hand and shouted, 1 million. Great. This gentleman has bid 1 million. Is there a higher bid? 1,100,000. 1,200,000. The audience began to fiercely bid. The noisy voices continued to wash Li Duobao's eardrums. She gradually pulled herself out of the hallucinatory world. The voices in her ears became clearer and clearer. The scene in front of her fell into her eyes. Only then did she realize that she was standing naked under the light. She met countless wretched gazes. She subconsciously hugged her chest with both hands. Her body slowly trembled. Her heart was also trembling. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run away. However, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, She had no choice but to stand there in despair. There was only a voice in her heart telling her, Li Duobao, be strong. Don't cry. Don't cry in front of these pigs and dogs. The voices of bidding rose and fell. Perhaps it was the psychological suggestion that worked. She slowly calmed down and expressionlessly stared at the group of people below the stage. In her clear eyes, there was something called strength. Perhaps, in her subconscious, she believed that Bai Li Yun would definitely come to save her. Welfare, Hongcha 866. Chapter 392. The host shouted at the top of his lungs, 2 million going once, 2 million going twice. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? 5 million. The closed door was suddenly pushed open, and a tall figure appeared at the door. The venue fell silent. $5 million was a sky-high price to buy a woman. Everyone turned their heads and looked at the man who had suddenly barged in. He was handsome, and his expression was cold. His entire body was emitting a domineering aura that made people tremble. He walked forward step by step, and with every step he took, Li Duobao's heart trembled. It was Bai Li Yun. He really came. The moment she saw him, her tears almost rolled down her cheeks. She bit her lips tightly and tried to control the sobs that came from the depths of her throat. The host shouted excitedly, 5 million! This gentleman has bid 5 million. Is there anyone who wants to bid higher than him? She's a rare oriental beauty. The venue was still silent. Other than Bai Li Yun's heavy footsteps, no other sound could be heard. The host tried to push the price higher and shouted, 5 million going once, 5 million going twice. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? Bai Li Yun walked up the stage step by step. Only then did the host and the audience in the front row see his expression clearly. He was like a ghost that had crawled out of hell. His eyes were gloomy and terrifying, and his entire body suddenly emitted a violent aura. The smile on the host's face instantly froze. Sir, please wait below the stage. The auction is not over yet. Bai Li Yun's eyes were dyed with a hint of scarlet. As if he didn't hear the host's reminder, he directly walked past him and walked in front of Li Duobao, who was covering his chest with both hands. He quickly took off his suit jacket and gently draped it over her shoulders. Then, he tightened the jacket and blocked the vulgar gazes of the group of people. His jacket could only cover about 2 inches below her legs, but it was much better than her lace underwear. He stared at her deeply. Without saying a word, he held her hand tightly and shielded her behind him. Then, his fierce gaze locked onto the host. His voice was hoarse, but it carried a coldness that brooked no refusal. Call your boss here. His actions confused everyone. The host smiled awkwardly. Sir, what do you mean by this? Bai Li Yun's eyes were filled with murderous intent, like a ferocious lion glaring at its prey. Your boss, tell him to come see me. The owner of this underground auction was the woman Li Duobao saw when he first woke up, Lisa. Through the surveillance camera, Lisa had already understood the situation in front of her. She slowly tidied up her hair and informed the bodyguard to bring Bai Li Yun over. The bodyguard whispered a few words into the host's ear and then walked over to Bai Li Yun. Sir, our boss would like to see you. Bai Li Yun glanced at him expressionlessly. He held Li Duobao's hand and followed him backstage. There was an uproar below the stage. The host hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Everyone, today's auction has come to an end. Thank you for coming. Bai Li Yun protected Li Duobao and followed the bodyguard to Lisa's office. Lisa was wearing a long black dress and 7 centimeters high heels. Her beautiful blonde hair was draped over her shoulders. She held a cigar between her slender fingers and leaned lazily on the desk. Her indifferent gaze fell on Bai Li Yun. Sir, why are you looking for me? Bai Li Yun stared at her coldly. You have guts. How dare you auction my woman? Li Duobao stood behind him with her head lowered. Her hand was still in his hand. When she heard him say, my woman, an indescribable feeling welled up in her heart. Lisa's pupils suddenly shrank. She chuckled and said, since she's come to this auction house, she's my goods. You've already bid for this miss for 5 million. As long as you pay the price, you can take her away. Bai Li Yun pursed his lips and said indifferently, I can give you 5 million. I want to know who kidnapped my woman. Lisa shrugged. I can't tell you. You know the rules of our business. Bailey Yun sneered. If you don't want to say, then go to the police station and discuss the so-called rules with the police. Lisa's expression changed slightly. She smiled faintly and said, Our auction house does legal business. Even if you call the police, I don't care. Bailey Yun's lips curled into a sarcastic smile. Legal? If the police witnessed this auction with their own eyes, can your business be considered legal? He raised his left hand. There was a watch on his wrist. He said to the watch, Detective Arnold, you can come in now. Actually, it wasn't a watch, but a one-way intercom. It could transmit all the sounds from this side to the other side. Lisa was furious. She took out a gun from the desk drawer and aimed it at Bailey Yun's chest. Bailey Yun calmly protected Li Duobao behind him and sneered. If I were you, I wouldn't be so stupid as to add another crime to my name. Shut up. I'm going to kill you. Before Lisa could pull the trigger, the office door was kicked open. A group of armed police surrounded them. Police, don't move. Put down your weapons. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, Lisa had no choice but to throw away the gun in her hand. When she was taken away by the police, she glared at Bailey Yun angrily. Bailey Yun didn't even look at her. All his attention was on Li Duobao, who was hiding behind him. He pulled her out from behind and held her tightly in his arms. He stroked her hair with his warm hands and said softly, Duobao, I'm sorry to have made you suffer. Only then did Li Duobao's highly taut nerves completely relax. She was like a frightened little animal, cowering in his arms in fear. Her tears fell uncontrollably, and a suppressed sob came from her throat. Duobao, it's okay. I'm here. Bailey Yun's heart ached. He frowned and hugged her tightly in his arms. He wished he could rub her into his body so that they wouldn't have to worry about being separated. Li Duobao cried for a while, and the fear in her heart gradually dissipated. However, she couldn't bear to leave his warm embrace. Still leaning on his chest, she muttered, How did you find me? I used to know some underworld friends. They said that the owner of the underground auction house said that a Chinese girl was being auctioned tonight. I guessed it was you, so I came to try my luck. Bailey Yun rubbed her hair. There was a trace of uneasiness in his low voice. Did they hurt you? Li Duobao shook her head. She suddenly thought of something and said in fear, They injected me with something. I became muddle-headed. Could it be drugs? Bailey Yun's body stiffened. His Adam's apple bobbed twice. His low voice suppressed his anger. Duobao, don't be afraid. Let's find that syringe first and take it to the police station for testing. If they really injected her with drugs, he would never let them go. The police found a lot of prohibited items in the underground auction house. There were also a few Xiao girls who had been abducted from Africa. With this solid evidence, the leaders of the auction house would definitely not be able to escape the punishment of the law. Li Duobao and Bailey Yun also had to go to the police station to make a statement. She was still wearing Bailey Yun's jacket. Inside was the translucent underwear. When she sat down, her legs would definitely be exposed. She stood awkwardly at the door of the police car, too embarrassed to sit down. Suddenly, her waist tightened. She subconsciously lowered her head. Bailey Yun's arm was around her waist. He tied a thin blanket around her waist. The blanket was very long, enough to cover her legs. Are you still cold? He asked softly. Li Duobao's long eyelashes trembled. She was touched by his thoughtfulness. He deliberately blurred the focus so that she wouldn't be embarrassed. She sniffed, shook her head, and got into the police car. The police car quickly arrived at the police station. Bailey Yun wasn't in a hurry to get out of the car. Instead, he whispered something to the police officer who was with him. The police officer nodded and called for the driver. The two of them left first. Li Duobao reached out to open the car door. Bailey Yun stopped her. Don't be anxious. Wait for a while. She didn't understand and looked at him blankly. He smiled and explained, I asked my assistant to go to the hotel to bring your luggage over. He'll be here soon. We'll go upstairs after you change. Li Duobao blushed and said, Oh. Bailey Yun ruffled her hair. Sit in the car. I'll go down and wait for Kelly. After waiting for 2 or 3 minutes, a car drove into the underground parking lot. Kelly got out of the car with a suitcase and walked quickly to Bailey Yun. President, This is Miss Lee's luggage. Bailey Yun nodded and said calmly, "You've worked hard. You can go back and rest first." It was night time and there was no one in the underground parking lot. Bailey Yun's back was facing the police car to avoid arousing suspicion. Li Duobao got into the back of the car and quickly changed her clothes. After getting out of the car, she walked to him and said with a red face, "I'm done. Let's go upstairs." Bai Li Yun made an N sound and very naturally grabbed her left hand, holding it tightly in his hand. She blushed even more and secretly glanced at him. His face was calm, as if he didn't have any other thoughts. She was embarrassed to pull her hand back. The syringe was sent for testing. Bailey Yun accompanied Li Duobao to take a statement. Then, he brought her back to his apartment. This was a very beautiful villa. He lived alone. The hourly workers would come to clean every day, so the room was very clean and tidy. Bailey Yun brought Li Duobao to the guest room and gave her a clean towel and a man's bathrobe. "I don't have women's clothes here. Wear my bathrobe first. Tomorrow, we'll go shopping and buy some women's products." Li Duobao quickly said, "No need. I'll go back to the hotel tomorrow." Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 393. Bailey Yun's face darkened and his gaze turned fierce. "It's too dangerous for you to stay in the hotel alone. I'm worried. Stay at my place when you come to New York in the future." It was the first time Li Duobao had seen such a scary expression on his face. She pouted guiltily. "What happened today was just an accident. My colleagues are all staying at that hotel. I'll be careful in the future. There's no room for discussion. From today onwards, you'll stay at my place." Bai Li Yun took a step forward and lowered his head to look at her. The two of them were very close to each other, his face almost touching hers. His tall and straight body released a domineering aura that could not be denied, tightly enveloping her. Li Duobao was anxious. She raised her chin and looked at him. "Bailey Yun, can't you be more reasonable? My colleagues are all staying there and I'm the only one who's special. What do you want others to think?" Bailey Yun was so angry that he gritted his teeth and roared at her. "I'm not reasonable? Do you know that I'm going crazy because you're missing? Do you know how guilty I feel? I want to beat myself up. I wish I was the one who was kidnapped." Li Duobao's body trembled. She looked at him in disbelief and her eyes quickly reddened. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. I really didn't know. I wanted to give you a surprise. I'm sorry." She bit her lips and her beautiful big eyes were sparkling with tears. She looked so pitiful that she looked like an obedient little white rabbit. His heart started to ache. He suddenly reached out and pulled her into his arms. He hugged her tightly and said in a low voice, "Girl, don't make me worry again in the future." She didn't struggle and Gigai let him hug her. She pressed her head against his broad chest and said softly, "Okay, I won't anymore." He hugged her arm tighter and stroked her hair gently. "Listen to me and stay here with me. I won't be worried only if I can watch over you at all times." She was in a difficult position and didn't know how to respond. He rubbed his smooth chin against her silky hair and said in a magnetic voice, "If you feel troubled, I'll talk to your leader. He won't make things difficult for you." She muttered, "How are you going to communicate with my boss?" Bai Liyun's mood improved a little. The corner of his lips curled up as he chuckled. "I'll tell him directly that you're my fiancé. In order to save money for the company, you'll stay with me temporarily." She hurriedly pushed him away and said seriously, "No, I'm not your fiancé. Don't talk nonsense." He shrugged nonchalantly. "Sooner or later." Her face flushed red. "We haven't started dating yet. If you spout nonsense, I'll ignore you from now on." Bailey Yun poked her puffy cheeks and raised his eyebrows mischievously. All right, I was just teasing you. Silly girl, you actually took it seriously." "You're the stupid one." Li Duobao slapped his hand away with a fierce face. "All right, don't be angry. Hurry up and take a shower. After that, we'll go downstairs to eat." Although he really wanted to tease the silly lass had been frightened for an entire day and should also relax. Okay." Li Duobao picked up the towel and bathrobe that he had placed on the sofa. She smiled shyly and walked into the bathroom. Bailey Yun put his hands in his trouser pockets. When he heard the sound of water splashing in the bathroom, he turned and went downstairs. The all-in-one kitchen was decorated with modern black marble and black tempered glass. It was spotless. Bailey Yun didn't know how to cook and had never cooked before. The kitchen was simply a decoration to him. Fortunately, he had hired a very good hourly worker. She would buy food every day and fill his fridge to the brim in case he needed it. He opened the fridge and looked through it. Most of the food inside was frozen food. He just needed to put it in the pot and cook it. He squatted in front of the fridge and frowned slightly. After thinking for a while, he finally decided to cook frozen dumplings. He washed the pot, filled it with water, covered the pot, turned on the gas stove, and waited for the water to boil. That's what the internet said. It should be right. Bailey Yun used his mobile phone to search for how to cook frozen dumplings and then followed the steps, step by step. The water in the pot bubbled and bubbled. Steam rose from the pores and filled the air. Bailey Yun opened the package of frozen dumplings and held a frozen dumpling in his hand. He stood about half a meter away from the pot and then threw the dumpling into the boiling pot like he was throwing a baseball. Plop! The dumpling hit the pot and the water splashed out. A drop splashed on the back of his hand and burned him. One. Plop, plop. Finally, he threw the whole package of dumplings into the boiling pot. The back of his hand had been burned red. He didn't care about the burn on his hand and quickly covered the pot. Bailey Yun stared at the pot seriously and waited for the water to boil. The internet said that after the dumplings were put into the pot, cold water had to be added twice when the water boiled. A few minutes later, the water finally boiled. He scooped a small bowl of cold water and poured it into the pot to continue cooking. When he scooped the cooked dumplings into a bowl, Li Duobao happened to come down from upstairs. Her hair was still a little wet and was draped over her shoulders. She had changed into her own clothes, a checkered skirt and a small white cardigan. She looked youthful and energetic. Bailey Yun brought the dumplings to the dining room and greeted her with a smile. The dumplings just came out of the pot. Come and eat them while they're hot. Li Duobao jogged over. Okay, I love dumplings the most. Eat more if you like them. Here's a pair of chopsticks. Try them and see if they taste good. Bailey Yun stuffed the chopsticks into her hands, held her shoulders, and pressed her into the chair. Li Duobao held the chopsticks but didn't eat. She glanced at the dining table and asked curiously, "Why is there only one bowl? Aren't you going to eat?" Bailey Yun touched his nose embarrassedly. "There's only one bag of frozen dumplings. Eat first. I'll cook the instant noodles later." "What's wrong with the back of your hand?" Li Duobao saw that the back of his hand was red. He shrugged nonchalantly. "It's nothing. I accidentally scalded myself. Why don't you treat it? If there are blisters, it'll get worse." Li Duobao quickly put down her chopsticks and grabbed his wrist. Her delicate brows furrowed. "It's so red. Wash it with cold water first." She grabbed his wrist and dragged him to the sink. She turned on the tap and washed the back of his hand with cold water. She explained carefully, "After a burn, you have to wash the wound with cold water first. Then, soak the wound in cold water for 10 minutes to half an hour. Then, apply burn ointment. Do you have any burn ointment in your house?" Bailey Yun looked at her serious expression and was in a good mood. He couldn't feel the burning on the back of his hand and turned a deaf ear to her question. Li Duobao didn't get an answer for a long time. She looked up and saw him in a daze. She said angrily, "Hey, what are you thinking about? Let me ask you, do you have any burn ointment at home?" A smile appeared in by Li Yun's eyes as he shook his head. "No." Li Duobao thought for a moment and said, "It's okay. If you don't have any ointment, you can use honey, ginger juice, or toothpaste instead. Apply it to the wound and it can quickly suppress the redness and swelling. It can also stop the pain. Soak your hand in cold water and don't move. I'll get the toothpaste." Bai Liyun's eyes curved into crescents. "All right." The little girl ran upstairs like a gust of wind to find the toothpaste. Bai Liyun's smile widened. He lowered his eyes and looked at his fingers soaked in cold water. His heart was full. "Okay, the toothpaste is here." Li Duobao rushed back to his side like a gust of wind. She first disinfected the back of his hand with alcohol and then carefully applied the toothpaste to the wound. Bailey Yun looked at the snow-white back of his hand and smiled. I didn't expect you to know these things. Li Duobao grinned. When I was young, I often got scolded while cooking. That's what my mother taught me. There's a saying that a long illness makes a good doctor. It's referring to me. The smile on Bailey Yun's face gradually froze. Every time she mentioned her past life, he felt his heart ache. However, she acted as if nothing had happened and never took it to heart. She was even proud that the suffering of the past had made her who she was now. Every time he learned more about her, he liked her more. He thought that if he hadn't met her on the plane when he had left that desperate one-sided love, how lonely would his life have been? He smiled and gently patted her head. He said softly, "Let's eat. The dumplings are sticky." Li Duobao blinked and quickly rolled up the sleeves of her cardigan. Sit down first. I'll get you something to eat. No need. I'm not hungry yet. You eat first. Bailey Yun tried to stop her, but she put her hands on his back and pushed him to the dining table. She joked, "The kitchen is my territory now. Don't come in and disturb me. Gigai, sit down. I'll be back soon." Bailey Yun watched her open the fridge and hesitated for a few seconds. Then, she took out a few eggs, a few tomatoes, and a packet of instant noodles from the cabinet. She was wearing an apron and seemed to be in a good mood. She wandered around the kitchen table for a few minutes and soon came back with a bowl of fragrant tomato and egg noodles. She placed the noodles in front of him and handed him a pair of chopsticks. She smiled with narrowed eyes. Be careful. It's hot. Bailey Yun's slanted eyes curved and he pulled out a chair for her. Sit down. The dumplings are cold. It's okay. It's easier to eat when it's cold. Li Duobao picked up a chubby dumpling and put it in his bowl. Her eyes were full of smiles. These are the dumplings you worked so hard to cook. How can you not try it? Bailey Yun picked up a chopstick of noodles and put it into his mouth. His eyes immediately turned red. It's delicious. Duobao, your cooking skills are amazing. Li Duobao was embarrassed by his praise. She took a bite of the dumpling and praised him back. The dumplings are delicious too. He smiled sheepishly. It's a pity that I didn't make them myself. They were frozen dumplings. I was only responsible for cooking them, but in the end, I burned my hand. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 394. Li Duobao blinked her big watery eyes and grinned. It's not embarrassing to not know how to cook. There are many things that you know how to do that I don't know either. Bailey Yun immediately beamed with joy. So you don't mind? Of course I don't mind. Li Duobao blinked her eyes in confusion. She really didn't know what to mind about this kind of thing. Of course, she didn't understand Li Yun's thoughts. He looked confident and proud, but in reality, he still felt inferior in his heart. He felt guilty for his past. Facing such an innocent Li Duobao, he wanted to become the perfect man in her heart. After the meal, Bailey Yun took the initiative to take on the responsibility of washing the dishes. Li Duobao pushed him to the side and coaxed him like a child. Your hand is injured, so you should rest. I'm used to doing these chores. It'll be done soon. Li Yun leaned against the wall and watched her busying herself in the kitchen. She skillfully did the housework with a peaceful smile on her face. Her graceful figure appeared even more enchanting under the soft light. It was a wonderful feeling and also very warm. It was as if the two of them had lived together for many years and didn't need to do anything. As long as he quietly watched her, he would be satisfied. Li Duobao cut some fruits and placed them in a beautiful glass plate. She smiled and brought them in front of him. The fruits are here after the meal. Bailey Yun pulled her to his side and sat down. Let's watch a comedy. It'll help you sleep if you relax before going to bed. Sure. The two of them nestled on the soft sofa, watching a comedy while eating fruits. Li Duobao was convulsing with laughter, and Li Yun wasn't any better. He held his stomach and collapsed on her lap, laughing like a big fox and a little white rabbit. He was laughing happily on the sofa, and his fur was all over the sofa. After watching the movie, Bailey Yun laid on Li Duobao's lap and lazily stretched his waist. It's getting late, let's rest early. Li Duobao puffed up her cheeks and stared at him without blinking. He wantonly rubbed against her legs twice, and that unbelievably beautiful face still had a satisfied expression. Don't tell me we're just going to rest like this? How much longer are you going to take advantage of me? I've been using my eyes to whip you for a long time. Li Duobao slapped his head in dissatisfaction. Bailey Yun narrowed his peach blossom eyes and threw her a charming smile. His voice was extremely charming. It's too comfortable. I can't bear to get up. If you think you're at a disadvantage, you can lean on my legs. He patted his thigh with his slender fingers and stretched out his arms. Come, I'll give you my warm embrace too. She pouted in disdain. No way, I'm the one who's at a disadvantage, okay? Get up, I'm going to bed. She pushed him forcefully, and he slowly climbed up from her legs with a regretful look on his face. The bed in the guest room was very comfortable, and it was many times more comfortable than the bed in the hotel. Moreover, Li Duobao had been frightened and was mentally exhausted. Once she laid on the bed, she quickly fell asleep. Bailey Yun was worried that she wouldn't be able to sleep because of the shock, so he warmed up a glass of milk in the kitchen and brought it upstairs. He sneaked it into her room, but when he walked to the head of the bed, he saw that she had curled up into a ball and was sleeping soundly. He raised his eyebrows in amusement and bent down to stroke her hair gently. The next morning, Li Duobao climbed out of bed in a daze. The room was unfamiliar. She rubbed her cheeks hard, and her brain gradually woke up. Ah, this is Bailey Yun's house. She instantly regained her energy. She glanced at the clock by the bed. It was already 8:30. She knew something was wrong and hurriedly jumped out of bed. She didn't even have time to change her clothes as she ran downstairs in her slippers. Bailey Yun was sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper. When he heard the frantic footsteps, he looked up and saw Li Duobao running downstairs in a cute white rabbit nightgown. Her long hair was messy, and her little face was filled with anxiety. Bailey Yun's heart tightened, and he hurriedly stood up. Duobao, what happened? Li Duobao's footsteps suddenly froze, and she stood there in a daze for a few seconds. She touched her hair awkwardly. You're not going to the office? Bailey Yun walked closer to her. I'm staying at home to accompany you today. You still haven't told me why you ran down in a panic. Li Duobao chuckled. I accidentally overslept. I thought you were going to the office. She did not continue speaking. Her fair cheeks had already been dyed with a faint layer of pink, and even her small earlobes were flushed red. Bai Li Yun was slightly startled, then suddenly chuckled. He approached her and ruffled her hair. His eyes filled with a bright light. You ran so fast just to send me to the company? She replied shyly. She thought he was going to the office, and they could only meet again at night, so she didn't want to miss this morning's farewell. Bailey Yun beamed. Looking at her lowered eyes and the way her eyelashes trembled shyly, he felt sweet in his heart. He bent down and kissed her forehead gently. Silly girl, I'm liking you more and more. What should I do? His slightly cold lips were imprinted on her forehead, and she couldn't help but tremble slightly. She bit her lips shyly, and her heart pounded. She didn't dare to raise her head to look at him. His deep and magnetic laughter seemed to come from his chest, and it was so pleasant that it was intoxicating. He pulled her into his embrace, and his warm palm rested on her waist. He whispered, Duobao, you're mine. She didn't say anything, but there was a hint of a smile in her clear eyes. The two of them hugged each other quietly. The morning sun shone through the window onto the clean floor, and it was as beautiful as a painting. Gulp, gulp. A strange sound broke the warm atmosphere. Bailey Yun chuckled. Hungry? Go wash up. I've already made breakfast. Li Duobao's cheeks were red as she withdrew from his embrace. Like a little rabbit, she quickly ran upstairs. She ran all the way to the bathroom and saw herself in the mirror. Her face was like a peach blossom, and her hair was like withered grass. She was so embarrassed that she was about to cry. She actually ran downstairs without washing up or changing her clothes, letting him see her worst side. However, he didn't mind at all, and even kissed her forehead. She felt like her soul was about to fly away. When she tidied herself up, changed her clothes, and went downstairs again, Bailey Yun had already placed 2 sets of breakfast on the dining table. Each of them had a glass of milk, and there was also a black unknown object. What's this? Li Duobao poked the plate with a fork. It was dark inside the plate, and she couldn't tell what it was. Bailey Yun coughed. The legendary fried egg. Li Duobao sighed. The legendary dog cuisine. Without hesitation, she picked up the fork and put a piece into her mouth. Just as she was about to put it in her mouth, Bailey Yun quickly grabbed her wrist and smiled awkwardly. It's better not to eat it. I'll order takeout. She blinked. No, other than my dad. You're the first man to cook for me. She suddenly thought of something and held his hand. Let me see. Did you burn yourself again? No, I was smart enough not to throw a ball this time. Bailey Yun raised his eyebrows proudly. Actually, I've tried it before. It tastes pretty good, but the color is a little ugly. Now that you mention it, I want to try it even more. Li Duobao's expression didn't change. She put the fork into her mouth and chewed carefully. Bailey Yun looked at her anxiously and expectantly. How is it? It tastes pretty good. She smiled and praised him. Then, she chewed the eggshell inside the fried egg and swallowed it quietly. Bailey Yun's eyes immediately lit up. He was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He combed the hair in front of his forehead and said, I told you. I have the talent to be a chef. Oh, not bad. You can do it, Chef Bailey. I have high hopes for you. Li Duobao winked mischievously and gave him a thumbs up. The two of them laughed and finished breakfast. Li Duobao pushed him to the side with the reason that he couldn't touch water because of the burn on his hand. She washed the dishes and cleaned the kitchen herself. When she walked into the kitchen, she realized that it could be described as a battlefield. Egg white was flowing on the table, a pool of egg yolk was lying on the ground, and broken eggshells were everywhere. It took talent to be able to make a kitchen like this. When Li Duobao was cleaning up, she found that there were several black unknown objects in the trash can. The objects were mixed with a lot of fried eggshells. Her eyes turned slightly and she quickly understood. Bailey Yun must have practiced many times before he could bring out the two finished products. Through the black fried eggs that had been thrown away, she seemed to see him standing in the kitchen, scratching his ears and cheeks in a panic as he fought with the eggs. She couldn't help but laugh out loud. Bailey Yun stood behind her and looked at her giggling to the trash can. He touched his nose embarrassedly. You've realized that I've actually failed many times. Li Duobao turned to look at him. Her head was slightly tilted and she had a quiet smile on her face. Why do you do things that you're not good at? Bailey Yun stared at her with a serious expression and said slowly, You're hungry. He had exposed the things that he wasn't good at in front of her time and time again. The reason was very simple. It was because he cared about her. Although the food he made didn't taste good and looked ugly, it was because he was considerate of her. Li Duobao bit her lip. This was the most touching words of love she had ever heard. It touched her heart even more than, I love you. Her eyes flickered quickly and she asked, Are you so considerate to all women? He hesitated for a moment and said, Before you there was only one. He walked closer to her. I don't want to hide it from you. I used to love Xiaodong. She looked at him with her clear eyes and asked softly, Do you still love her? He smiled slowly. She taught me what love is and how to love someone. To me, she's special. But the person I love now is you. Can you understand? He stared into her eyes so seriously. His deep eyes were surging with emotions. There was uneasiness, apprehension, and anticipation. He understood that people were selfish when it came to relationships. He hoped that he was the only one in his lover's heart. He didn't know if she would accept him like this. Add, Hongcha 866. Chapter 395. Li Duobao stared at him quietly. Her eyes were as clear as water, and she bit her lip without saying a word. Bailey Yun smiled bitterly. Sorry, I asked for too much. Her thick eyelashes fluttered, and she hesitated for a moment before saying, If it wasn't for her, the Bailey Yun I see now might still be a playboy. She's special to you, and I understand that. Light gradually returned to his dim eyes. She paused for a moment before continuing, Don't look at me like a fool. Actually, I also have fantasies about love. I want to meet someone like that when I'm young and we're each other's only. We'll witness each other's growth and we'll grow old together. That's why I dared to confess to my senior when I was still a student. I thought he would be the one to grow up with me. the light in Bailey Yun's eyes gradually faded, and he clenched his fists tightly. He had a lot of past that he couldn't give her a blank past. She smiled, and her slender fingers slowly landed on his brows. She rubbed his slightly furrowed brows and said softly, "Actually, I'm very timid. Ever since that failed confession, I didn't dare to accept other people's feelings anymore. I feel that they can't give me a love that lasts forever. You said that this is called love panic. Are you willing to give me time to overcome this panic with me?" At this moment, she was no longer that bright and innocent girl, but a rational little woman who was uneasy after her fantasy was shattered. She had built a barrier in her heart, and even if she was moved, she didn't dare to cross that barrier because she was afraid that what awaited her behind it wouldn't be hope, but despair. Two people who were uneasy and had low self-esteem. A hint of a smile appeared in Bai Liyun's eyes, and then it slowly flowed until it overflowed onto his cheeks. By the side of his lips, he held her right hand, looked at her picturesque eyes and slowly said, "From this moment onwards, I am your boyfriend." She was slightly stunned, and her beautiful big eyes widened. After a while, she pursed her lips and smiled. "Okay." Bai Liyun smiled brilliantly and pulled her into his arms, hugging her tightly. The police station called and said that there was a new discovery. The test results of the drug residue in the syringe were also out. They asked the two of them to come to the police station. Li Duobao was very nervous. She was worried that the group of old women had injected her with drugs. Although she did not say it out loud, Bai Liyun knew that she was very uneasy from the way she bit her lips. As he drove, he comforted her. "Girl, don't worry. Everything will be fine." She replied. At a time like this, the more they talked about it, the more worried she would be. He ruffled her hair and changed the topic with a chuckle. "You're leaving New York tomorrow, and we won't be able to see each other for a week. I'm already starting to miss you. What should I do?" Her clear eyes were full of smiles, and she mischievously sniffled. "Then don't worry about me. I won't make you pay taxes." "You heartless little rascal, don't you miss me?" Bai Liyun raised his eyebrows and smiled. She furrowed her delicate brows in embarrassment. "Well, I'll think about it reluctantly." "Naughty!" Bai Liyun knocked on her forehead. If it weren't for the fact that he was driving, he would have hugged her and blocked her red lips with his. Detective Arnold was in charge of receiving them. After Bai Liyun shook hands with him, he asked, "Detective Arnold, what's the result of the test?" Arnold smiled. "Don't worry. They didn't inject Miss Li with drugs, but with a hallucinogen. There won't be any side effects." "That's great." Li Duobao looked at Bai Liyun happily. Bai Liyun winked at her. Arnold naturally knew that their relationship was unusual. He clenched his right fist and rested his chin on it. He coughed and pushed a portrait in front of Li Duobao. "Miss Li, please take a look at this person. Is he the one who kidnapped you?" Li Duobao picked up the portrait and looked at it carefully. She nodded and said, "It's him." Detective Arnold knocked on the desk and said, "Lisa confessed that this person sold Miss Li to her. We've already checked his background. His name is Molin. Mitchell has a criminal record for theft and intentional injury. We're already looking for him." Arnold carefully learned about the situation when Li Duobao was kidnapped. He frowned and said, "I suspect Molin. Mitchell didn't commit the crime randomly. He premeditated to target Miss Li. Through the taxi company's GPS system, we found that Molin's taxi stopped outside the hotel for more than 10 minutes. There was a lot of traffic outside the hotel. If it was a random crime, it doesn't make sense for him to wait for so long. Miss Li, please think carefully. Do you have any grudges with anyone?" Li Duobao thought for a long time and shook her head. "No, I've never quarreled with anyone. Well, except for Bai Liyun, of course." Bai Liyun's eyes flashed and he glanced at Arnold. Arnold smiled and said, "Miss Li, I have something to discuss with Mr. Bailey alone." "Oh, okay, Detective Arnold. Thank you." Li Duobao smiled politely and then left the office. A policewoman led her to the reception room next door to wait for Bai Liyun. Arnold said, "Mr. Bailey, do you have any thoughts?" Bai Liyun's expression was a little ugly. Duobao's interpersonal relationships are very simple. She has a very good personality. It's impossible for her to have any grudges with others. I suspect that the other party hurt her because of me. Make it clear. Bailey Yoon pinched the space between his eyebrows. It's a little complicated. I used to date a girl. She was Japanese and her name was Suzuki Chisakura. We had a child. He briefly explained how he and Suzuki Chisakura had fought over Xiao Bao's custody and said, I ruined her plan. It's very likely that she holds a grudge against me. She can't deal with me, so she came to hurt the people I care about. Arnold said seriously, in that case, Suzuki Chisakura is indeed suspicious, but we can't be sure. You've made a lot of enemies in the past. Once we catch Mo Lin, everything will come to light. During this period of time, it's best for Miss Lee to be more careful. Bailey Yoon said solemnly, I understand. I'll protect her. Detective Arnold, thank you very much for everything you've done. You're welcome. It's nothing. Arnold smiled and shook his hand. Walking out of the police station building, Lee Duobao asked curiously, what were you and Detective Arnold talking about? Bailey Yoon paused and looked at her fair little face. His foxy eyes twitched. You want to know? She smiled playfully. If you can tell me. His lips curled into a smile as he pressed his palm against her forehead. I can tell you this. Arnold asked me what my relationship with you was, and I told him that you're my future wife. How about it? Are you satisfied with my answer? Lee Duobao blinked. Is that really it? Why do I feel like you're hiding something from me? How could I hide anything from your future husband? Don't think too much, okay? His sexy and soft voice was full of affection. Lee Duobao fell into his gentle attack and foolishly followed him into the car. It wasn't until 10 minutes later that she realized something was wrong. Blushing, she mumbled, don't talk nonsense in the future. I'm not your future wife. Bailey Yoon raised his eyebrows and smiled slyly. If you're not, then who is? Honey, stop fooling around. Let's go home. Stop shouting. I'm really going to get angry. Lee Duobao's face was so hot that it could cook an egg. She glared at him and threatened him. Okay. Don't be angry. I'll listen to you and stop shouting. You're my future wife after all. Bailey Yoon really had the ability to anger people to death. The two drove to the supermarket. Bailey Yoon pushed the cart with one hand and held Lee Duobao's hand with the other. The two were like a married couple for many years. They stood in front of the shelves and picked out what they needed. Bailey Yoon picked up a bottle of shower gel that was full of foreign words and asked with a smile, Do you like lemon-flavored shower gel? I don't like it. I like citrus. It just so happens that this brand also has citrus. Bailey Yoon changed a bottle and put it into the shopping cart. The two bought a cart full of daily necessities. Lee Duobao pulled his arm and walked to the vegetable and fruit section. She smiled and said, Let's go buy groceries. I'm going to make you something delicious tonight. Bailey Yoon was handsome, tall, and dressed in famous brands. He appeared in the vegetable section and attracted the attention of many mothers-in-law. There were also many beauties who looked at him. It was a pity that he didn't even look at them out of the corner of his eyes. All of his attention was on Lee Duobao. He spoke to her gently and was considerate, which broke the hearts of many women. The public man from before had disappeared. Now, he only had her in his eyes. Lee Duobao bought ready-made dumpling skins. When she got home, she made 2 kinds of fillings, leek and egg fillings and cabbage and pork fillings. When she started to make dumplings, Bailey Yoon also stayed by her side to help. The dumplings he made were of different sizes and shapes. Lee Duobao laughed. It's so ugly. They look like they haven't eaten their fill, lying on the cooking table. Well, you dare to laugh at me. I will destroy you on behalf of the moon. Bailey Yoon suddenly reached out and smeared flour on her cheeks. Wah, I want revenge. Under the soft light, 2 figures, one tall and one short, were playing around, talking and laughing. It was extremely warm. Lee Duobao made a very sumptuous dinner. After the meal, she sealed the uncooked dumplings in a plastic bag and put them into the refrigerator. She dragged Bailey Yoon to squat in front of the refrigerator and pointed out to him, This one is filled with leek and egg, and this one is filled with cabbage and pork. If you're hungry at night, take it out and cook it. Don't eat too much junk food. It's not good for your health. Bailey Yoon's eyes were full of smiles. It turned out that she made so many dumplings for him to make a midnight snack. This girl still liked him a lot. didn't she? Add, Song Shu 566. Chapter 396. The next morning. Bailey Yun put Li Duobao's luggage in the trunk and drove her to the airport. Before she got out of the car, he pulled her into his arms and said gently, Duobao, remember, I'm your boyfriend. If you encounter any difficulties, you must tell me. Take good care of yourself. Okay, I'll remember that. You have to take good care of yourself too. Ayun. Ayun. This was the first time she had called his name so intimately. Bailey Yun hugged her tightly, unwilling to let go. Li Duobao smiled and patted him on the back with her small hand. She said gently, It's about time. I have to go. See you next week. Bailey Yun held her shoulders and looked at her delicate eyes with a burning gaze. He lowered his head and slowly approached her. Li Duobao had a premonition that something was about to happen. She grabbed his sleeve nervously and her thick eyelashes trembled slightly. She stared at him with a pair of innocent and watery eyes. Her face was full of nervousness. Bailey Yun felt like he was bullying a little white rabbit. He couldn't kiss her at all. Forget it, let's take it slow. It's better not to scare her. A certain someone who had wanted to kiss her for a long time sighed in his heart. He changed the position of his lips and gently landed on her forehead. His soft lips pressed against her forehead. It was warm, like a feather falling on a calm lake, creating ripples. Li Duobao's heart was also in a mess. Bailey Yun sent Li Duobao to the airport. He stood in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling window and looked at the plane parked outside. He took out his phone and made a call to the country. Bailey Han was very unhappy. Anyone who was doing intimate things with their wife would be unhappy if they were disturbed by a phone call. He didn't want to answer the call, but Xia Dong took his phone from the bedside table. She looked at the caller ID and looked at him reproachfully. Hurry up and answer it. It's Ayun. Bailey Han took the phone and slowed down his movements. His voice was tense as he asked concisely, What's the matter? Bailey Yun waited for a long time before the other side picked up the phone. The voice on the other side of the phone was slightly out of breath. Someone like him who had been in love for a long time certainly knew what was happening on the other side of the phone. He smirked and said lazily, I'm sorry, brother. I forgot that it's only 10 o'clock at night in China. Did I disturb you? Bailey Han's voice deepened. I'll give you 10 seconds. Speak quickly. Okay, don't be angry. Bailey Yun brushed the hair on his forehead and finally got to the point. Brother, Li Duobao and I are dating. She was kidnapped 2 days ago. I suspect that Suzuki Chizukura ordered someone to do it. Send 2 people to protect her, please. Bailey Han grunted. Without waiting for him to speak, he cut off the call, turned off the phone, lowered his waist, and sank into the storm with Xiaodong again. There was only the sound of the phone beeping in his ears. Bailey Yun shook his head and said to himself, A dissatisfied man is so scary. He had forgotten who the dissatisfied man was. 2 days later, the New York Police Department arrested Molin Mitchell. Molin didn't admit to kidnapping Li Duobao at first. Later, under Lisa's accusation, he had to admit it but refused to say who was behind it. After a series of threats and promises, Molin finally revealed that an Asian had contacted him and offered him $100,000 to kidnap Li Duobao. It would be best if he could cripple her to death. Molin saw that Li Duobao was beautiful, and he just so happened to have a relationship with Lisa, so he directly sold Li Duobao to Lisa to make a second profit. After Arnold told Bailey Yun the results of the investigation, he said, We can't confirm that it was the Japanese who contacted Molin. In his eyes, all Asians are the same. He can't distinguish between Japanese and Chinese. How did they contact each other? If it was really Suzuki Chizukura who ordered it, she wouldn't be stupid enough to send someone to New York to hire a hitman. It must have been through remote contact. Arnold spread his hands and said helplessly, Through the phone I checked. The other party used a burner phone and threw it away after one use. There was no way to find out who used it. What about the payment? A Swiss account. The name of the account holder is Sophia. Alice. I've already sent someone to investigate this name. Wait a minute. Bailey Yun felt that the name was familiar. He tapped the table with his finger and frowned slightly. After a moment, His eyes suddenly lit up. I remember. On the day I met Suzuki Chizukura again, she deliberately pretended to be a stranger and got close to me. She said that she had an English name, Sophia. Sophia. Alice. It must be her fake name. Although there was no conclusive evidence, Bailey Yun had already determined that Suzuki Chizukura was the mastermind behind it. This woman was simply too arrogant. He wouldn't let her have an easy time. Bailey Yun had read the investigation information about Suzuki Chizukura before. He knew that the Matsuda group was actually a mafia gang, but on the surface, it was plated with the gold of an industrial group. All the funds of unknown origin were laundered through the industrial group, and the Matsuda group's main business was the import and export of steel. The Matsuda group's main business was the steel export business, and its biggest partner was the American SQT Steel Company. Bailey Yun hired a few commercial spies and spent nearly a month investigating the trade between SQT and the Matsuda group. The annual trade volume was in the billions. No wonder Suzuki Chizukura was willing to pay any price to secure the position of the gang leader. Of course, he also found some interesting things that were enough to threaten Suzuki Chizukura's position in the gang. When Suzuki Chizukura heard that her subordinates had already bribed the New York assassins to kidnap Li Duobao, she thought that she had gotten rid of Li Duobao, a big problem in her heart, and didn't take it to heart. Unexpectedly, more than a month later, Bailey Yun suddenly called her. Chian Sakura smiled charmingly. Ah Yun, are you looking for me because you want to relive old memories with me? Bailey Yun snorted in disgust. Suzuki Chizukura, it's broad daylight and you're already dreaming. I'm warning you, don't hurt Duobao again. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you. Suzuki Chizukura lazily raised her brows. I have no idea what you're talking about. Bailey Yun sneered. Stop pretending. I've already investigated everything that you've done. More than a month ago, you were the one who ordered Mo Lin to kidnap Duobao. If you dare to hurt her again, I won't let you off. Suzuki Chizukura's gaze turned cold. Damn it! Those two bastards actually lied to her. Didn't they say that Mo Lin had already killed Li Duobao? How could that damned woman still be alive? She tore apart the disguise on her face and sneered, even if I did it, what can you do about it? You're just an incompetent playboy. What can you do without the protection of your family and Mika Kito's help? Bai Liyun's eyes were cold, and his lips curled into a mocking smile. He said unhurriedly, 6 years ago, the me you knew was indeed an incompetent playboy. But now, I won't let anyone look down on me. The Matsuda Group and SQT Steel Company are truly a pair of good partners. They even evade taxes together. In the past 3 years, you've evaded more than 2 billion yen in taxes. According to what I know, tax evasion is a serious crime in Japan. If the Matsuda Group's tax evasion is exposed, then the image that Matsuda Taro has painstakingly built up will suffer a devastating blow. Suzuki Chizukura's face turned pale as she tightly held onto her phone. After a long pause, she calmly said, Our company is operating legally. There's no tax evasion at all. Bailey Yun sneered. You really won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Do you believe that I'll fax the evidence of your company's tax evasion to the IRS right now? Bailey Yun spoke with certainty. Even if Suzuki Chizukura was suspicious, she didn't dare to take the risk since he didn't have any evidence. Once the news of tax evasion reached the IRS, their company wouldn't have any peace. Her face turned ugly as she gnashed her teeth. All right, I understand. I won't trouble Li Duobao anymore. Bailey Yun coldly said, You better pray that Duobao is safe. Otherwise, I'll blame you for anything that happens to her. Suzuki Chizukura was furious. Bailey Yun, don't go too far. You know clearly whether I'm going too far or you're going too far. Originally, I still wanted to get along with you peacefully because you are Little Treasure's mother. I didn't expect you to do such a shameless thing. You have really shattered the last bit of affection I have for you. His tone was indifferent, as if he was talking to a stranger who had nothing to do with him. Suzuki Chizukura, you're on your own in the future. Suzuki Chizukura's body stiffened as she listened to the beeping sound from the phone. She felt as if all the strength in her body had been sucked away as she slumped into the chair. It was over. Everything was over. What was she still fighting for? If she angered Bailey Yun again, He might not allow her to visit Xiaobao anymore. He might even deprive her of her only right as a mother. Since she couldn't win against him, then she might as well stop fighting. Suzuki Chizukura covered her face with her hands and couldn't calm down for a long time. In the blink of an eye, it was already May. Bailey Yun and Li Duobao had been officially dating for 2 months. Although they didn't spend much time together, their relationship didn't fade. Instead, it deepened. May 13th was Li Duobao's birthday. She didn't have a flight mission, so she could stay at home for her birthday. Early in the morning, Bailey Yun called to give her his blessings. She smiled foolishly. "Do you have a gift?" "Of course. You'll receive my gift by air at 9 o'clock tonight." Bailey Yun dragged his suitcase with one hand and held his phone with the other as he walked in the airport lobby. "Okay, I'm looking forward to it." Li Duobao held her phone and rolled around on the bed happily like a puppy. "It's 8 o'clock in the evening in New York. Are you home? Have you had dinner?" "Yes, I'm home. I've already boiled the dumplings you made for me in the pot. Dinner will be ready soon." Li Duobao stopped rolling and scratched her messy hair. She muttered discontentedly, "Why are you eating so late? What if you're hungry?" "It's okay. I had snacks in the afternoon. I'm not hungry yet." Bailey Yun printed his boarding pass and asked with a smile, "Birthday girl, what are your plans today?" "Home. My mother and stepfather have already bought groceries and are waiting for me to go back." Bai Liyun's footsteps paused. He was filled with hostility towards Li Duobao's stepfather. Even when he spoke, this hostility was accidentally revealed. "Protect yourself well. Don't be alone with your stepfather." "I know. Don't worry about me. Go and take a look at the dumplings. Don't overcook them." Li Duobao was still thinking about his dumplings. Bailey Yun smiled softly. "Okay, I'll hang up first. I'll call you tonight." "Okay." Li Duobao smiled sweetly. After hanging up the phone, she still held her phone and smiled foolishly. Her phone suddenly rang again. She quickly picked it up. "Duobao, are you up?" It was Yuyu's voice. Yes. I'm up. Yuyu, we haven't seen each other for a long time. I miss you so much." Ran Yuyu said apologetically. "I'm sorry, Duobao. I'm currently participating in a taekwondo competition in the imperial capital. I can't go back today. When I go back, I'll definitely make it up to you." Li Duobao jumped up excitedly. "Competition? Why didn't you tell me? I could have gone to the imperial capital to cheer you on. I knew you would be like this, so I hid it from you. It's not easy for you to celebrate your birthday with your parents. You must have fun. Don't worry about me. I'm confident that I can defeat everyone in the world." Li Duobao was amused by her. "Yuyu is the best. You will definitely win the championship. When you return in triumph, I will definitely give you a welcome. Yo, silly girl, you've improved. You even used 2 idioms in one sentence. Don't look down on me. I was a talented girl in the Chinese department back then." Ren Yuyu laughed heartily. After a while, she asked, "Where's your family's Bailey Yun? Did he fly back from the United States?" "No, he's very busy with work. However, he sent me a gift by air." Although Li Duobao felt a little regretful, she did not blame Bailey Yun in the slightest. She knew that he was working hard for the future of the two of them. "Oh, this guy is not bad. You guys have a good life. I support you." Ran Yuyu initially did not think highly of Bailey Yun. However, in the past 2 months, she had seen how well he treated Duobao. He seemed to have really turned over a new leaf, so she gradually changed her attitude towards him. "Yuyu is the best. Yuyu, you have to work hard. I'll wait for your triumphant return. Don't worry, there won't be a problem. Duobao, I'm going to prepare. I'll call you after the competition." Li Duobao was very happy. His best friend had finally recognized Bailey Yun. She happily hummed a little tune and happily ran into the bathroom to wash up. Li Duobao's mother's name was Wuxia, and his stepfather's name was Zhao Dai. The two of them had a son who was currently studying in a foreign university. The couple ran a small shop together and lived quite comfortably. Zhao Dai looked honest and treated Wuxia and Li Duobao very well, but he liked to drink. Li Duobao was most afraid of him drinking, and every time he got drunk, he would say some strange things, do some strange things, and even insult Wang Xia. When he woke up, he would cry and apologize to Wang Xia, and for the sake of the children, Wang Xia would often forgive him. Li Duobao walked into the house with a faint sense of uneasiness, but she did not expect that what greeted her would be a nightmare. Awesome novel, Xinwu 799. Chapter 397. Li Duobao walked into the house with a faint sense of uneasiness, but she did not expect that what greeted her would be a nightmare. Duobao, you're back. The person who opened the door for her was her stepfather, Zhao Dai. His face was full of smiles as he enthusiastically took the gifts in her hands. Just go home. Why did you buy so many things? Come in. Li Duobao sweetly called out. Dad. She changed into her slippers, looked around and asked, Dad, where's my mom? Your mom just went downstairs to buy soy sauce. Come and sit. Zhao Dai put his arm around her shoulder and walked to the sofa. Li Duobao followed him to the sofa and sat down. He smiled and said, Sit down first. I'll go wash the fruits. Your mom bought a lot of your favorite things. Li Duobao did not want him to be busy, so she quickly stood up and said, Dad, you rest. I'll go wash it. Zhao Dai smiled kindly. Duobao, you're usually outside. It's been hard on you. When you get home, rest well. Be good and sit down to watch TV. I'll be back soon. All right then, Dad. Sorry to trouble you. Silly child, don't be so polite with me. Zhao Dai laughed heartily, walked into the kitchen, and took out fruits from the fridge. After washing them, he brought them to the living room and filled a fruit plate with walnuts, pistachios, and other snacks. He placed them all in front of her and greeted her warmly. Duobao, eat quickly. Okay. Dad, you eat too. Duobao took an orange, peeled it, and handed it to him. Dad, eat an orange. Okay. Zhao Dai smiled until his eyes narrowed into slits. The father and daughter sat on the sofa, eating fruits and chatting. After more than 10 minutes, the sound of the door unlocking came from the door. Wang Xia leaned in with a convenience bag in her hand. Li Duobao put down the things in her hand and ran to her quickly. She leaned into her arms like a child and said, Mom, I'm back. Wang Xia beamed and stroked her hair. Silly girl, you're still like a child. She stared at Duobao's face for a long time. Oh, why did you lose weight? Your face is small. Have you not been eating well recently? Li Duobao rubbed her bun face and said coquettishly, Mom, my face has always been so round. How did I lose weight? If I really lost weight, I'd be happy. Wang Xia patted her on the head. Girls are so cute when they're round and have good fortune. Don't learn from them and lose weight. You'll lose weight like an all. Of course. Of you. Of course. Of you. Of you. Li Duobao sat next to Wang Xia and intimately hugged her arm. The family of three chatted happily and the atmosphere was very harmonious. Wang Xia often talked about her daughter's marriage. She sighed and said, Bao, you're not young anymore. When you bring back a boyfriend for your parents, we'll be satisfied. Li Duobao looked at her mother's eager gaze. She almost couldn't help but tell them about her relationship, but she held back. If her parents asked about Bai Liyun's personal situation, they might object to them being together. It would be better to wait for Bai Liyun to settle down in the country before telling them about it. Li Duobao shook Wang Xia's arm. Mom, don't worry. I'm still young, it's not like I can't get married. Zhao Dai laughed. That's right, Xia. Bao is still young, don't always rush her. Young people nowadays pay attention to their career before they start a family. Wang Xia poked Li Duobao's forehead with her finger. I can't win against the two of you. You father and daughter have teamed up to deal with me. Mom is the best. Mom, don't worry. I will definitely live up to your expectations. After these 2 months of getting along, Li Duobao became more and more confident in Bai Liyun. She believed that their relationship would blossom. That's good. Don't let Mom wait too long. Wang Xia stroked the back of her hand in relief. During dinner, Zhao Dai took out a bottle of beer as usual and said happily, Today is Duobao's birthday. It's a good day. Let's drink some wine to celebrate. Old Zhao, drink less. Wang Xia's face revealed a troubled expression. I know. I haven't drunk for more than half a month. I'll drink 1 or 2 cups to satisfy my cravings. Zhao Dai laughed as he opened the beer and poured 3 full cups of wine. 1 cup of wine was placed in front of him, while the other 2 cups were given to Wang Xia and Li Duobao. Zhao Dai raised his wine cup. Come, let's toast first. We wish Duobao a happy birthday and a happy heart. Thank you, Dad. Li Duobao and Wang Xia could not drink. At most, they would get drunk after drinking a cup of beer. They only took 2 sips to show their sincerity. However, Zhao Dai was different. He raised his head and drank a cup of beer in a straightforward manner. Soon, he poured himself another cup. Old Zhao, don't just drink. Eat more food, or else it won't be good for your stomach. Wang Xia picked up some food and placed it in his bowl. Eat, all of you eat. Don't worry about me. Zhao Dai greeted them with a smile. He ate 2 chopsticks of food and drank another cup of wine in the blink of an eye. Dad, don't drink too much. It's not good for your health to drink too much. Li Duobao looked at him drinking and felt a little uneasy. He secretly glanced at Wang Xia and saw that Wang Xia's expression was also not good. She smiled stiffly and said, Old Zhao Bao is right. Don't drink too much. Zhao Dai was not drunk yet. He shook his cup and said, It's fine. This little bit of wine is nothing. I'm happy today, so let me drink a few more cups of wine. Since he had already said so, Wang Xia did not want to embarrass him in front of her daughter, so she could only let him be. However, when he finished 2 bottles of wine, she could not help but say, Old Zhao, you're drunk. Don't drink any more. Zhao Dai was indeed drunk at the moment. He narrowed his eyes that were filled with vicissitudes of life and shouted in dissatisfaction, Shut up. When men drink, women shouldn't interfere. I've never seen you so wishy-washy. Li Duobao's heart was filled with fear. She originally thought that the family would be able to reunite today, but she did not expect her stepfather's old habit to act up again. She quietly tugged at her mother's sleeve and said in a low voice, Mom, don't say any more. She knew that the more her mother tried to persuade him, the more excited Zhao Dai would be, and he would start to insult her mother again. Wang Xia obviously thought of this as well. She pursed her lips and swallowed her words of persuasion. There's no more wine. Wang Xia, quickly bring me more wine. Zhao Dai impatiently threw the empty wine bottle to the ground. With a bang, the wine bottle shattered and the glass shards scattered all over the ground. The sound was so loud that Li Duobao trembled in fright. Wang Xia sighed. Bao, I think your father won't be able to stop for a while. Go back to your room first, I'll take care of him. Mom, it's fine. I'll stay here with you. In Li Duobao's impression, Zhao Dai was the most drunk he had ever been, and even hit her mother. She already had a shadow in her heart, and did not dare to leave her mother here alone. What are you 2 talking about? Hurry up and bring me the wine. Zhao Dai fiercely slapped the table. All right, don't worry. I'll bring you the wine right away. Wang Xia quickly got up and went to the kitchen to get the wine. If she was a step late, Zhao Dai would scold her again. Zhao Dai cursed non-stop. Li Duobao looked at the glass shards on the floor and silently took a broom and shovel over, intending to clean up the shards. A few of the shards were right beside Zhao Dai's feet. Li Duobao was worried that the shards would scratch his feet, so he cleaned them very carefully. Suddenly, he stepped on the broom and raised his head, looking at her and giggling. Little girl, what's your name? You're so beautiful. All the memories of his strange words and actions after he was drunk surfaced in his mind. Li Duobao took 2 steps back in fear. Dad, it's me. I'm Duobao. You're drunk. I'm not drunk. I'm very sober. Duobao, my cute daughter. Zhao Dai suddenly stood up, took 2 steps forward, grabbed her arm and dragged her to his side. Zhao Dai, what are you doing? Let go of your daughter. Wang Xia came out of the kitchen and saw Zhao Dai grabbing his daughter's arm. She hurried forward and pushed him away. Zhao Dai staggered back a few steps, knocking over a chair and almost falling to the ground. He flew into a rage out of humiliation. His eyes were dyed with a layer of scarlet as he recklessly rushed up and fiercely slapped Wang Xia's face as he roared, You slut! How dare you push me? His slap made Wang Xia see stars, and in an instant, 5 red marks appeared on her face. It was not enough for him to slap her once, so he raised his arm and wanted to slap her again. Li Duobao hurriedly hugged his arm and shouted anxiously, "Dad, stop hitting her. You're drunk. Wake up. Get out of my way. I'm going to beat that slut to death today." Zhao Dai shook Li Duobao off with all his might, causing Li Duobao to almost crash into the dining table. When she stabilized her body, Zhao Dai had already reached out and pulled Wuxia over, pulling her hair and kicking her. Dad, I beg you, don't hit me anymore, don't hit me anymore." Li Duobao was so scared that tears flowed down her face. She hugged Zhao Dai tightly from behind and shouted in panic, "Mom, how are you?" Wuxia's hair was still in Zhao Dai's hand, and her face was red and swollen. She grabbed Zhao Dai's hand and used all her strength to pry open his fingers. Just as she was about to break free from his hand, he suddenly picked up a beer bottle from the table and smashed it at her head. Bang! The beer bottle shattered. Blood slowly flowed down Wuxia's head. Her body swayed, and with a plop she fell to the ground. Mom! Li Duobao let go of Zhao Dai and cried as she threw herself onto Wuxia. "Mom, how are you? Don't scare me. Hold on, I'll call an ambulance right away." Li Duobao was so scared that her heart almost stopped beating. Her entire body was trembling. She didn't know how she ran to the landline. When she picked up the phone and was about to make a call, an arm suddenly stretched out from behind and pulled her over. "Come and see." Song Shu 566. Chapter 398. Li Duobao was shocked. She turned around and saw that it was Zhao Dai. His entire body reeked of alcohol as he pulled her into his embrace and laughed sinisterly. "Duobao, good baby. I've been missing you for a long time. Dad, I beg you, let me go. I want to call and save Mom. She's bleeding a lot." Li Duobao was completely flustered. In her eyes and mind, there was only the image of her mother lying on the ground injured. The bright red blood made her tremble in fear. She struggled with all her might, wanting to push him away. However, Zhao Dai was extremely strong. He grabbed her arm and flung her violently. She was thrown onto the sofa. Her head was dizzy from the impact. Before she could get up, Zhao Dai had already pounced on her and pressed her under his body. His tall body was completely pressed down on her. He laughed sinisterly as he opened his mouth that was filled with the smell of alcohol and kissed her. This was the first time Li Duobao had encountered such a thing. She was both flustered and frightened. She quickly turned her head away, causing him to kiss empty air. She pushed him away forcefully and cried, "Dad, don't be like this. I'm your daughter." Zhao Dai caressed her cheek with one hand and quickly pulled at her clothes with the other. He muttered, "Anyway, you're not my biological daughter. It doesn't matter. If it wasn't for you, I would have divorced your mother long ago. You bastard, get lost, don't touch me." His hand rubbed against her face like an ant. It was extremely disgusting. Li Duobao went crazy and bit his finger. He cried out in pain and the taste of blood filled her mouth, constantly reminding her that her mother was still lying on the floor unconscious. She had to quickly send her mother to the hospital. Zhao Dai suddenly swung his hand and slapped her. "You slut, you're just like your mother. I've raised you for so many years. It's only right for you to let me have a taste of the sweetness. Why are you pretending to be a chaste woman?" He forcefully opened her mouth and pulled his finger out of her mouth. He cursed and said all kinds of vulgar and shameless words. His slap was extremely forceful. Li Duobao's ears were buzzing and her cheeks were burning with pain. However, the pain on her body was far from the pain in her heart. She had always thought that her stepfather was just drunk, which was why he said such absurd things. Now, she understood that he was simply using alcohol to boost his courage and taking the opportunity to put his dirty thoughts into action. She was so sad. She actually recognized this kind of person as her father. She seriously respected him and loved him. He was not worthy at all. He was a beast in human skin. At this moment, he had already ripped off her dress. His dirty hands were caressing her skin. He even used his knee to push her legs apart. He anxiously took off his pants. Fear was like a tide, almost drowning her. At that moment, she suddenly heard a series of knocks on the door. She didn't know where it came from, but she didn't know where it came from. She suddenly raised her head and fiercely bumped into his chin. She used so much strength that she almost saw stars. Needless to say, Xiao Dai cried out in pain. He did not care about satisfying his beast hunger and reflexively covered his chin. Li Duobao took the opportunity to push him away and staggered towards the door. The knocking continued. As long as she opened the door, she would be saved. Xiao Dai chased after her and hugged her from behind. She cried out in horror, "Help, help! Slut, shut up!" Xiao Dai also heard the knocking. He covered her mouth with one hand and dragged her to the bedroom with the other. Li Duobao shook her head vigorously and hugged a huge porcelain vase standing near the entrance in a panic. Bang! Bang! There was a loud knocking sound outside the door, accompanied by Bailey Yun's anxious shout. "Duobao, what happened? Duobao, answer me!" Li Duobao's tears gushed out of her eyes. It was Bailey Yun. He came. She did not expect him to come. He must have heard her cry for help. He must have come to save her. Xiao Dai did not seem to expect that someone would knock on the door for a long time and no one would open the door for him. Not only did he not leave, he even used all his strength to knock on the door. Moreover, he seemed to be very familiar with Duobao. Just as he was stunned, Li Duobao suddenly stepped on the back of his foot. She used all her strength to push her head back and hit his face again. Xiao Dai's nose was almost crooked from the impact. Naturally, the strength in his hand also loosened. Li Duobao took the opportunity to escape. As she ran towards the door, she shouted, "Ah Yun, I'm inside." She opened the door as fast as she could and threw herself into the arms of the anxious-looking Bailey Yun. She hugged him tightly and wailed. Her mouth was muffled as she said, "Ah Yun, I'm so scared. Save my mother. Hurry up and save my mother." Her hair was messy, her clothes were ragged, her feet were bare, and there were obvious wounds on her face. She was in a sorry state. Bailey Yun did not need to think to know what had happened. He was so angry that he was about to explode. He threw away the flowers in his hand and hugged her tightly. His eyes were fixed on the man who was standing in the middle of the living room at a loss. He wanted to tear him into pieces. However, the most important thing now was not to teach that man a lesson, but to calm Duobao's emotions. He stroked her hair and whispered, "Duobao, it's okay. I'm here. Calm down and tell me, what happened to your mother?" Li Duobao leaned on his broad chest and tried her best to calm down. She hurriedly said, "Ah Yun, my mother is injured. Hurry up and call an ambulance." Bailey Yun did not have time to say more. He quickly took out his phone from his pocket and dialed the emergency number. He took off his coat and put it on Li Duobao. He said, "Duobao, follow me. Don't be afraid. Let's go in and see your mother." "Okay." Li Duobao held his hand tightly and followed him into the room. When she passed by Xiao Dai, her whole body trembled and she did not dare to look at him. Bailey Yun's heart was about to break. He held her hand and said softly, "Duobao, go in first. I'll be right there." She nodded in panic and ran to the dining room. "Who are you? Who told you to meddle in other people's business?" Xiao Dai accused Bailey Yun angrily. Bailey Yun rubbed his fists and said coldly, "I'm Duobao's boyfriend. I've been wanting to hit you for a long time." With that, he suddenly waved his fist and fiercely punched Xiao Dai to the ground. Xiao Dai lay on the ground, unable to move for a long time. Bailey Yun looked at him coldly, stepped over him and walked towards the dining room. Wuxia lay motionless on the floor, her cheeks swollen and the blood on her forehead had already coagulated. Li Duobao helped her tidy up her hair and cried in fear, "Mother, please don't let anything happen to you. Hold on, the ambulance will be here soon." Bailey Yun frowned. He checked her breathing and heaved a sigh of relief. He said softly, "Duobao, don't be afraid. Your mother is fine. Help me get a basin of hot water. I'll help her clean her wounds." "Oh, okay." With him by his side, Li Duobao seemed to have found his backbone. His flustered heart calmed down a lot and he quickly ran to the bathroom to get hot water. Bailey Yun carried Wuxia to the sofa and laid her flat. He carefully examined the wound on her head. It was about 3 to 4 centimeters long. That scum Xiao Dai was really ruthless. Bailey Yun was furious. He secretly made up his mind that he would definitely not let him off. Li Duobao brought the hot water over and squatted at the side to watch him wash his mother's face. He smiled at her comfortingly. Duobao, believe me, your mother will be fine. Go to the room and change your clothes. The ambulance will be here soon. Oh, okay. If he hadn't reminded her, she would have forgotten how pathetic she looked right now. After changing her clothes, she walked out of the room and found Zhao Dai standing at the door of her room. She screamed in fear and Bailey Yun quickly rushed over. Without saying a word, he punched Zhao Dai's face again. Bastard, you actually want to bully Duobao. After knocking Zhao Dai to the ground, Bailey Yun kicked him angrily. Cough cough I didn't. Zhao Dai curled up into a ball in pain. Stop hitting me, I just want to talk to Duobao. Bailey Yun raised his head and looked at Li Duobao. Is what he said true? Li Duobao hugged his arm in fear. I don't know. When I saw him here, I was shocked and couldn't help but cry out. Bailey Yun grabbed her shoulders, looked down at Zhao Dai and said coldly, what else do you want to say at a time like this? Because of the pain, Zhao Dai's face was distorted. He said pitifully, Duobao, I didn't mean to hurt you and your mother. I just drank too much. Please forgive me. I won't drink anymore. I don't want to hear you say it, and I won't forgive you. When he was bullying her just now, the words he said had broken her heart. Duobao, I beg you, please forgive me. All these years, I have never treated you and your mother unfairly. I was just drunk and confused. I definitely didn't mean to hurt you. Zhao Dai got up in a sorry state and begged for her forgiveness humbly. Bailey Yun snorted. Save these words for the police. Duobao, don't believe what he said. Let's go take care of your mother. He put his arm around her shoulders and walked towards the living room. Zhao Dai followed behind him pitifully, apologizing non-stop and saying soft words. Duobao, think about it. When you were young, you were weak and sick, and I often carried you to the hospital in the middle of the night. Once, you had a high fever and your mother was busy with work, so I stayed by your side and watched over you for an entire night. Have you forgotten how good I was to you? Your mother is also old. If I really go to jail, who will take care of her? And Xian, don't you like this little brother the most? Can you bear to let his father go to jail? Duobao, even if you don't give me face, please give Xian face and spare me this time. As Zhao Dai spoke, he actually started to cry. He slapped himself and shouted, It's all my fault. I've let you and your mother down. Come and see. Hongcha 866. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.